Yeah, you tuned into the right place. Welcome to the rain. Golden Queuing. H2.0. Yeah. Yeah. You're looking for a diamond, found a treasure in the rough. Tired of all the noise, cause you finally had enough. I'm here to build a movement on a mission for the nation. Dropping gems of knowledge, killing all the hesitation. We fighting for the truth, yeah, we fighting for what's right. Building unity and shining up a brand new light. It's a variety channel, but the vision's crystal clear. Pushing us all forward, conquering the doubt and fear.
Welcome to the Queendom, H2.0 on your screen, where the content's real and smart and funny in between. This is more than just a stream, it's a platform for the change. Time to elevate the game and rearrange. If you're ready for a vibe that you can feel and trust, joining in the movement is a definite must.
This ain't just another channel talking smack behind the screen. It's a spotlight for the creators, building up a better scene. Spreading radical love, that's the message and the code. Helping everybody carry up a heavy load. From social justice issues to the laughter that we need. Planting seeds of progress, watch them grow from just a seed. This is authentic, this is raw, this is everything you saw. Welcome to the battle that is truly being fought.
Ooh, so come with your respect and see the real effect. Cause I protect my own right here on the throne. Don't make me unleash the dragon.
Subscribe, ring that notification bell. Yeah, you don't wanna miss a thing. Welcome to the family. Yeah.
Yeah. They thought we were sleeping. Woke up! Woke up! Woke up! Wake up! 1 week and Noem lost the Fox and the DHS. She was playing checkers while we're dealing with this mess. Last credit in the street, nurse with illegal heat. Holstered in the holster, but they killed them for the feet. Yeah, the surges hitting cities, call it metro, call it war. They're knocking down the Constitution on the bedroom door. Bleep is split. Massey screaming, what's the price? Noem's on the stand, yeah, she's skating on the ice. They stripped the bill, they removed the clause. No safety for the people, they're breaking all the laws. Rocket in the room, yeah, she's looking at the files. Comer's out of time, she's been waiting for the trial. We got boots on the earth, I'm moving through the mist. They want the total surge, we're coming with the fist. Boots on the ground, yeah, the narrative is dead. Trump firing the chiefs while the streets are seeing red. We got boots on the ground, moving through the mist. They want the total surge, we're coming with the fist. Boots on the ground, yeah, the narrative is dead. Trump firing the chiefs while the streets are seeing red. Stay From our FBI senior, yeah, he dropped the bomb. Said bringing home an in is a crisis never calm. It's Mother Levovino, yeah, he's heading for the gate. Ellison is smiling while the judge decides the fate. Not credible, they said, yeah, he lied under the oath, trying to occupy the city. Now we're seeing the growth of the resistance, the persistence. Two-way to the left, unlikely alleys fighting back against the state that sponsors death. Listen close, listen close, listen close, listen close. They removed the ban on deporting the citizens. They're current appearing for the bullets in the prisons. From Minneapolis to DC, the wall is falling down. They can't stop the movement when we're holding down the town. Got boots on the ground, moving through the mist. They want that total surge, we're coming with the fist. Boots on the ground, yeah, the narrative is dead. Trump firing the chiefs while the streets are seeing red. Stay down, lay down, lay down, lay down, lay down, lay down, lay down. The surge is crumbling. We see you. We see it all.
Hey y'all, what's up? What's up? What's up? It's your girl Golden. So I'm back, like I said I will be this evening with another video, y'all. We got some more topics that we got to cover and get into. It is about 5:40 p.m. here Eastern time in the Carolinas in the United States. And yeah, y'all, we have been outside 2 times in that snow, and I am not going back out no more today. So I'm gonna be in for the evening. I'm about to go ahead and get into these topics or whatnot with you guys. I hope you all are having a great rest of your day too, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, or night. Respectfully, whatever time zone y'all are in. Hopefully, y'all having a great rest of y'all Sunday, y'all. Tomorrow is Monday. I got to get back to the hustle and bustle. But anyway, y'all, let's go ahead and get into it. So as y'all can see, we're going to be talking about 4 different topics, again this evening. So first and foremost, we're going to get into the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is facing articles of impeachment, but she is calling the media lies regarding deportation quotas. Then we're going to have to react to a viral showdown where DL Hughley takes on Megyn Kelly over Republican gun hypocrisy. Finally, we will discuss the shockwaves from, the Minnesota church protest arrest. Don Lemon has been released, but a disturbing pattern has emerged, and a lot of people are speaking on it, especially Jemele Hill, as she sat down with the CNN panel to point out that during those arrests, it seemed that every journalist that was targeted seemed to be Black. So the questions are, is this the First Amendment being applied based on race or not? And I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. So when it comes to Kristi Noem and the impeachment firestorm, Homeland Security, Kristi Noem is officially under fire. House Democrats have introduced articles of impeachment against her, alleging unethical contracts and lawless enforcement. But Noem just went on the offense, slamming the media for what she calls deportation quota lies. She's framing this as a direct attack on her ability to secure the border. We're going to look at the receipts and see if this impeachment is a real threat or is it just a political stunt. Now, when it comes to DL Hughley and Megyn Kelly and the gun double standard, this is the debate that everybody is talking about. DL Hughley went onto Megyn Kelly's show and absolutely dismantled the argument surrounding the Second Amendment rights. Hughley did not hold back, calling out the GOP's double standard when it comes to who is allowed to bear arms and who is not. It was a masterclass in challenging the narrative, and we have the clips here and parts of the conversations that Megyn probably didn't wish went viral. When it comes to, of course, the Minnesota arrest with not just Don Lemon, but 3 other reporters as well, we're going to be getting into a conversation with Jemele Hill on CNN, who is speaking out. This leads us into a deeper conversation that I think needs to be had about who the law is actually targeting right now. Jemele Hill and the panel on CNN highlighted a startling trend following this church protest. They pointed out that while many people were present, the DOJ seems to be zeroing in on a very specific group. We're looking at the claims that the federal government is effectively criminalizing Black media while giving others a pass. And finally, with the Don Lemon, the update we all were waiting for, we got, and we reported on that here on the previous live. Don Lemon has been released from custody. We know, yes, over and over again, I keep saying, he was arrested by federal agents in LA. Lemon appeared in court and he was released on his own recognizance. But the charges aren't going away. He's being hit with federal civil rights crimes for his coverage at that Minnesota protest. We're going to discuss the legal analysis and none other, y'all, than loudmouth Stephen A. Smith wants to weigh in and has something to say as he sits down with DL Hughley. They're debating whether the DOJ is reaching, but the bigger question remains. Also, the same question that Jemele Hill raised. Why does it feel like the journalists' labels only protect you if you look a certain way? Don is out and free, but the fight for the First Amendment is just getting started. So come on, y'all. Get in the chat with me. I got a few videos and audio to play for y'all per usual. We're going to go ahead and get into all of this. So for our first video that I want to show you guys, I'm going to get this up in just a minute. But this is going to be the reports with Kristi Noem, and she responds to Democrats' impeachment claims. She's saying media's deportation quotas are lies. This is from none other than the Fox News, of course, platform. So, y'all, we're going to go ahead and get into that video over there. You know, we try to keep it fair over here. So sometimes we have to listen to reports from all different major mainstream news stations. So sometimes it may be Fox. A lot of time, y'all know my favorites, MSNBC. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this one, y'all. Let me skip this ad real quick. Get this up on the screen, and then per usual, you know, I'll meet y'all in the chat as we listen together. All right, just a second here. Okay. StreamYard has been moving extremely slow today, y'all. So I really apologize about that. If it's taking me a while to get this stuff up here for y'all. I try to have it all set up before we start, but it's moving slow. Here we go.
Trump is telling DHS Secretary Noem to, under no circumstances, should her department intervene in Democrat city protests until the city itself asks for help. Please, he said.
It comes as a federal judge rejects Minnesota's request to block the surge of ICE agents in the state.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem joining us now. Madam Secretary, thank you for being here. We have a lot to get to, but obviously the president's most recent statement there on Truth Social, your reaction and thoughts on where this is headed now.
Well, the president's exactly right. We've got the Department of Homeland Security that is coming off its most successful year under his leadership in the history of the department. We have secured the border. We've driven down the murder rates and the crime rates to historic lows in this country, saved hundreds of millions of lives by interdicting drugs across the country and in our maritime borders. We've seen the left violently react, perpetuate violence and mob rule in our cities in retaliation for President Trump enforcing the law. And we're going to continue on a tactical plan to confront this violence that they're bringing to make sure we still continue to do the right thing. We're going to enforce the law, focus on the successes that we've had for the American people and bringing public safety to them. And we're going to go into this next year delivering even more results, making sure that our officers have the ability to conduct operations to get these dangerous criminals off of our streets that are perpetuating violence, and continue to go forward and deliver FEMA funding and help these states that have been so hit hard in these storms recently, and run TSA and keep our airlines and air traffic control safe. All of those are jobs of the Department of Homeland Security that we need to continue to push on, even though we have these violent monsters that are attacking law enforcement every day, continuing to use their tactics. We will outsmart them, and we will make sure that we keeping America safe.
Well, indeed, President Trump obviously sent Tom Homan into Minneapolis to change up the strategy, as you just mentioned. Tom Homan gave a press conference earlier last week saying that there were mistakes that DHS made on the ground in Minneapolis. What were those mistakes?
Oh, and I would say that we can always do better, and we learn from every situation that we're in. We see a very organized, well-funded campaign of violent protests against our law enforcement officers. And so we're going to continue to get as much information as soon as possible to give a strategy to protect people, protect our federal buildings like the president laid out yesterday. And we're going to make sure that the American people are safe, that we still continue to go after violent criminals who are trafficking drugs, trafficking our children, and bring them to justice and get them out of our country. If you think about last year of the Biden administration, over 125,000 children just in that year were trafficked across the border. And by securing that border this last year, zero children have been trafficked in the last 12 months because of President Trump's leadership. And that's what we're going to continue to bring. You've heard about all these children that we found and returned. We actually have countries that are asking for their children back. The president of Guatemala wanted their children back that had been trafficked in our country. And we tried to facilitate that in an activist judge stopped us from giving those children back to their families. So we're going to continue to work no matter what these left violent protesters are doing to stop law enforcement and to put people's lives in jeopardy.
Yeah, speaking of the children, by the way, it's incredible. Not just have you not had any children trafficked over the border, but you have returned almost 150,000 of them to either their parents or located them. They were literally lost in the system. It's truly remarkable. And I know that many of them had fallen into sex trafficking. So it's an incredible story to tell. And it happened under DHS. And I think that's why the president this past week wrote Truth Social saying that you're doing a great job, actually. Here is another story about a child. So here's a judge. We've all heard about this 5-year-old in Minneapolis, who his father was apprehended by ICE, and then he ran away on foot, abandoning the child. And then when ICE tried to find his mother, the mother refused to open the door for the child. And somehow DHS or ICE takes this child, gives the child food, protects it from the parents who've abandoned him. Somehow ICE is the bad guy in this situation. Well, a judge has ordered the release of this child who was in custody because his parents had abandoned him. The case has the judge says the case has its genesis in the ill-conceived and incompetently implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently, even if it requires traumatizing children. So first, let's address this quota. Is there a quota that you're getting from the White House that you have to meet? Or are you just addressing crime and criminals as you see as they come to your awareness?
No, Rachel, there's no quotas. And let me be clear, these families always get the opportunity to stay together. This child has been with his father, which was the father's choice. We offered them the opportunity to go home, to send them back to their home country if they would like to. The father chose to stay, and therefore we're following the legal process. But it's shocking to me the media's lies about not just that story, but day after day after day about what we do for work in this country to bring people that are dangerous criminals to justice and then remove them from our country if they don't belong here, if they came here illegally. We have the opportunity every day for people who want to go home and are in this country illegally. We give you $2,600. We buy you a plane ticket and send you home right now. That's a voluntary program. We've had millions of people take advantage of that. That is something that we still want individuals to make the right decisions so they have the chance to come back to this country the right way.
Secretary, a lot of people said no one would take, they actually mocked the self-deportation notion, and yet millions have done that. Just very quickly,
They have.
You've been there a little over a year. How has morale changed at the Department of Homeland Security in spite of all this media?
Oh, the people at the Department of Homeland Security and law enforcement are so excited they get to do their jobs. They're so proud to work for a president that is strong, that is decisive, and that wants to make America safe and enforce our laws again. So they're doing great. In fact, Rachel, just at ICE, we had over 220,000 applications for 10,000 openings. At USCIS, we've had tens of thousands of applications. Secret Service applications have more than doubled. We've got people in every department department that are asking to come and work for the Department of Homeland Security because they recognize that we want to defend the homeland, that a country with no borders is no country at all, that people who live here and our citizens deserve safety on their streets, and that we deliver a response of protection of our critical infrastructure and relief to states when they face disasters through FEMA as well. It's a vast department with a lot of responsibilities, 23 different agencies, all tasked with keeping people safe. And that's exactly what President Trump is doing.
And, you know, Madam Secretary, you're getting a lot of criticism recently. Now, in the wake of Alex Preddy's tragic shooting, you described him as a domestic terrorist, and that has seemed to have led to many Democrats, including Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who you just heard in Chad's report, now threatening to try and impeach you, calls for your resignation. So my question is a little bit twofold. One is, do you still hold that view that Alex Preddy is falling in the category of a domestic terrorist, and your response to those like Jeffries and Democrats that are calling for your resignation and threatening impeachment?
Well, Griff, in those situations, there was chaos on the ground. You're relying on information and facts that you're getting from the ground. And the president and this administration has been incredibly transparent with the American people. And so when those reports are given, you give as much information as you possibly can. And we continue to go through with the FBI leading on these investigations to get to the bottom of this situation, these protests and fraud that we see in Minnesota, who's funding them, where the billions of dollars have gone that were stolen from the American taxpayers and citizens. We'll continue to do our work. And, you know, this job is an honor to do. I'm very blessed that I get the chance to lead the department. It's an important position to protect our homeland and to make sure that these agencies are responding to people, that we're stopping terrorists and criminals from harming the American people. I always tell people that the days that you don't hear about us are the days that we were successful, because that meant that we stopped so many dangerous people from perpetuating violence and have gotten those terrorist threats and criminals out of our country before they had the chance to do something that would have devastated families.
That's certainly true. But do you still believe that Alex Preddy is a domestic terrorist?
You know, we're going to continue to go through with this investigation and deliver information as we go forward. You know, you learn something new from the reports all the time, and we'll continue to do better and give factual information to people as we go through every situation that's on the ground.
So it wasn't just Democrats that you stirred up some controversy with. There were a lot of Second Amendment defenders who were upset about your comment about Preddy, saying, I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign. And a lot of people, gun owners who are, rely on you to be a faithful defender of the Second Amendment, saw that as undermining Second Amendment rights.
All right, y'all. So I want y'all to hold that thought. Hold that thought. Keep that in your mind. Keep all of those comments in your mind that she made and the questions that they've been asking. So for a quick moment here, I'm going to pull this down. And I want to go ahead and read something for you guys and share you something as well. Because when I shake my head and I make the comments that I make, it's not for no reason. It's the hypocrisy for me. And it's the switch up for me that sometimes really, surprises me how these people move and operate. But let me read something to you guys real quick, and then I want to show you an older video from Noem here. So it is very clear, if you have been paying attention over the years, that there are definitely two different Kristis, okay? On one hand, you have who used to be the governor of South Dakota, who went to the NRA and said guns are about deterrence and protecting us from a tyrannical government. But now, as she is DHS Secretary, the same woman is saying that if you show up to a protest with a weapon, you aren't a peaceful protester, you're a criminal. She spent years telling us that the Second Amendment is a God-given right that doesn't stop at your front door. But the moment a man like Alex Preddy, a licensed gun owner, is pow down by her agents in Minnesota, she flips the script. Suddenly, having a pow or a gun and an extra magazine is proof of violent intent. Is the Second Amendment only for people she likes? We're going to look at some videos and the voting records because the hypocrisy is clearly on full display. So, the peaceful protester narrative. Here's the switch. As DHS Secretary in January 2026, Noem stated, "I don't know of any peaceful protesters that show up with a pow and ammunition rather than a sign." The hypocrisy. In 2023, she told the NRA that the Second Amendment is about ensuring the government respects the rights and liberties of citizens. She has spent her career arguing that law-abiding citizens should be armed everywhere to deter government overreach. Now, constitutional carry versus criminal intent. Here's the receipts. The first bill Noem signed as governor of South Dakota back in 2019, which I'm going to show you guys in just a moment, was about constitutional carry, which allowed people to carry concealed handguns or pow-pows without a permit. The hypocrisy of all of this is now her department is justifying the unaliving, the pow-powing of Alex Preddy, who actually had a permit, by claiming that being armed at a protest is inciting violence. She went from carrying is a right to carrying is a crime the moment it happened during a protest against her agency, ICE. Now, we'll also get into arming schools versus targeting observers. Here's the receipts. In March 2024, she signed SB 203, allowing people with permits to carry to be able to have pow-pows in public schools. The hypocrisy, she argues that pow-pows in schools make them safer, yet she claims that a pow-pow in the hands of a peaceful observer at a protest makes the situation deadly. Y'all, I cannot be sure. Y'all let me know what y'all think about these hypocrisies, okay? Now, let me show y'all this video so y'all can see exactly what I'm telling you about. I'm going to go ahead and play this one for y'all. Remember, this is from 2019. This is her signing the bill. Let's hear what she had to say at that time.
Governor Kristi Noem is in the news for another reason. Today, she signed a law to change concealed carry in the state.
Now, once it becomes law in the summer, South Dakotans will no longer need to get a permit to carry a concealed handgun. This will also be the first time in 155 years there won't be a ban or regulations for concealed handguns.
It's been debated, it's been vetted. My administration, as well as many of the legislators behind me, have heard from citizens on this issue, and the robust and thoughtful process has resulted in the legislation that I have in front of me today.
I've been looking at several angles associated with the law throughout the day, including reaction from law enforcement to the change. You can find that on KELLOLAND.com and on KELLOLAND News at 6.
Alrighty then. So y'all seen that yourselves, okay? Now this was back in 2019. I do have another video that I'm going to show you guys. And you will see just exactly how, excuse me, let me put this speaker here. Just exactly how much hypocrisy we're hearing coming from this woman. The switch up is real. I guess you just have to agree with whoever it is that gives you a job and pays you the most money and run along with their rhetoric. We can't be sure. When people move and operate like this, they're very shifty. 1 minute you feel a certain type of way because you're rocking with that group. The next minute you feel a different type of way because you're rocking with that group. Well, which one at the core is it? Anyway, let's get back into the original video from current day, right? Of what Kristi Noem has to say as far as, and for me, y'all, they never answer a question directly. I don't know if y'all pay attention to that or not. They answer the same question in different ways. I've counted now at least twice. And they start off the response to a question with deflection immediately. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. This is when you know someone is escaping and lying and does not have a proper answer to give you. But let's go ahead and play some more of the commentary from Kristi Noem here in 2026.
Oh, Charlie, you know, I'm a carrier as well and a lifetime member of the NRA. There's nobody who's more pro Second Amendment than me. What I would say to that is you had an individual. Yeah, I think, well, with that situation, we had someone who was impeding a federal law enforcement operation and had been doing that for quite some time ahead of time and a background in this. And everyone knows that it's against the law to impede a federal law enforcement investigation with no ID on you and be carrying in those situations. That's the law in this country.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without.
We want to move down to the shut. But first of all, I just want to say, because this whole situation has brought a lot of attention onto your role. At the same time, we're hearing from the administration that they are touting the crime rates that have come down. The murder rate has come down. Mm-hmm. It's the lowest it's been in over 100 years. There's so much wonderful statistics that have been put forward. And you were behind so much of this. I know you're kind of a quiet Midwestern kind of a person who doesn't like to take a lot of credit for what you've done. I've seen that in you. But you were doing exactly what the White House asked you to do. And the successes also are attributed to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about these crime rates and what your department and your leadership has done specifically towards that?
Well, the statistics speak for themselves. With crime rate at historical lows, it's at the lowest rate across this country since it started to be tracked over 125 years ago. Murders have dramatically dropped. We've got drug trafficking down, fentanyl coming over the southern borders down by almost 60%. We've interdicted tons and tons of cocaine on the seas. Our Coast Guard has been working with the Department of War on these Venezuelan shadow fleet oil ships. The work that the Department of Homeland Security does, I've been proud to direct because it's been singularly focused on doing exactly what President Trump campaigned on, exactly what he promised, and that was to make sure we're using all of our government to do what we can to bring safety to the American people, to stop the invasion. And think about that. We had millions of people that crossed that southern border, unvetted by the Biden administration, no idea who they were. And other countries unloaded their prisons, their mental institutions, sent people to this country that wanted to do us harm. My job is to find them, bring them to justice, and get them out of this country before they harm us and to harm our citizens. So I'm so proud of the work that we've done at the department. It was a neglected department before I got here. It was run by a secretary who didn't pay attention, didn't address our threats. In fact, the first day that President Trump was in office, and on New Year's Day, even before he took over, we had a terrorist attack in this country, in New Orleans. And that's what we get up every day and work to stop and to make sure that we're getting those terrorists and suspected terrorists out of our country.
And Madam Secretary, just before we run out of time, I do want to ask you about another job at the department, and that is, of course, FEMA. You've been leading the effort as this historic winter storm has hit. I've spoken to members of Congress from Tennessee, my home state, who said that they are terrified of the impact that this government shutdown could have on getting resources and funding to FEMA in places like Tennessee, Mississippi, North Carolina that are being hit hardest.
Yeah, this winter storm Fern, that devastated dozens of states. There was 12 that were major disaster declarations, and we worked with all of those states to pre-deploy resources to send them funds immediately. FEMA's been responding and delivering support to these states that are managing through these disasters 3 times faster than they ever have before. And we just last night had this bomb cyclone that hit the Carolinas, and in talking with their governors and talking with Virginia and their government as well, we can pre-deploy food and meals generators, teams to help set up those generators, keep people warm through this cold snap. That is all proactive work we're doing to help support these disasters that are managed by states but executed by the local officials. And I think it's been phenomenal to see that partnership.
But does that-
FEMA was a political disaster before President Trump came in and said, we're going to reform it, make it responsive, and that's exactly what we've done. But it needs to be funded in order for us to be able to give this kind of support. And this Department of Homeland Security bill is critically important to make sure that FEMA has the dollars it needs to respond. FEMA's charged with running our critical infrastructure and maintaining our government on our very worst day. That's the agency that ensures that our government continues to run should we be attacked, should we have a terrorist attack in this country, and we have a leadership situation where that needs to be in place. So this is a critically important agency that to not fund would be not just devastating for states in a disaster, but also for the continuation of our government.
Well, let's hope the lawmakers on Capitol Hill are listening to you this morning. Madam Secretary, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you, Secretary.
All right, y'all. So I have another video I want to show you. So let's go ahead and get into this, okay? This is Kristi Noem. And this is her speaking on Biden's gun control push, defends the Second Amendment in fierce NRA speech. It's not that long, but I want you to hear some of the things that she says. I want you to really fully pay attention to what she said in that speech and compare it to the things that she is saying in current day time. So let's go ahead and get into that, y'all. Give me just a second to get this up on the screen. Let's go ahead and get into it.
So wonderful to be with so many friends here today. Are you excited? God bless America. Charlton Heston once said, those dead old white guys who invented this country, they knew what they were talking about. So often all we need to do to inspire us for future fights is to look at the examples of the past. Our founding fathers and our former leaders, they charted a visionary path for our country. They created an exceptional experiment of freedom and a personal responsibility that would withstand centuries of storms and challenges. To keep what they built, we must be people who act on values and character rather than our personal benefit. So much of who we are is determined by how we were raised. Now listen, I didn't grow up in politics. On our farm and ranch, we didn't talk about politics, we lived them. We had a gun cabinet in our living room. We had a shotgun hanging in the back window of every single pickup and tractor. Our family vacations were even hunting trips. Long before I ever ran for office, I became a lifetime member of the NRA. My dad taught us life lessons. He taught us common sense, and often those were taught during our hunting trips. As soon as we were old enough to ride a horse, he would take us hunting. He'd pack us by horseback, sometimes 20 miles back into the wilderness to hunt elk. I didn't always know it back then, but those hunting trips gave me a lot of confidence. They helped me become a problem solver. For instance, I remember being only about 9 or 10 years old, and we had hunted all day, miles and miles from camp in the high country in the Bighorn Mountains, when my dad turned to me and he said, Kristi, hunt your way back to camp. I'm going to go around this ridge and I'll meet you there at dark. And he disappeared over the ridge. Now, to a 10-year-old girl, this was terrifying. And as strange noises came and darkness fell, I had to rely on my instincts and my horse to find my way back to our tent. Now, years later, Mom shared with me that my dad had followed me at a safe distance all the way back to camp to make sure that I got there safe. Now, before you get all warm and fuzzy on him, I also want to tell you that he made bear noises the whole time he was following me. Scratching trees and growling at me. So, he made sure I lived, but he wanted me to be lived scared. But he made me stronger. And it also made me realize that I could conquer challenges that were put in front of me. It made me who I am today. And that's the first female governor of the state of South Dakota. Now with me today, I have my husband, Brian. who has been with me every step of the way for the last 31 years. Now, I want to thank him for all of his support, but also for the amazing family that we've been blessed with. And speaking of family, I've got 3 kids, 2 son-in-laws, and did you know that I'm also a grandmother? Not just once, but twice. Have 2 beautiful grandchildren. For those of you with grandchildren, there is no question as to why we get up every day and we fight. We get up every day and we fight for our values. Little Miss Addie, who is almost 2, and Branch, who's just a few months old, they have brought us so much joy. They brought us purpose. Now, Addie, who, soon will need them, I want to reassure you, she already has a shotgun and she already has a rifle. And she's got a little pony named Sparkles, too, so the girl is set up. There's a very famous quote that says, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Some would look at what's happening here in America today and they would call the times unprecedented. They would say unforeseen. I would say the exact opposite. It all sounds and it all looks and feels tragically familiar. We have been here before. A country that's arguing over policies, a public that's discouraged and dismayed by the lack of public discourse, violence in our streets and in our schools, families grieving their children, and loved ones that were destroyed by a deranged maniac for no apparent reason, and a White House that is so hell-bent on grabbing power and control of your life, they will do anything and not stop at absolutely nothing to take it away. They will even take away your last tool of defense. The Second Amendment is about deterrence. It's about ensuring the government respects the rights and the liberty of citizens. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of a people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Those 27 words are freedom's last line of defense. The founders understood deeply that without an armed citizenry, authentic freedom could not and would not survive. And how did they know this? What were their circumstances? What did they know about human nature and the temptation to seize power? Did they know how fragile freedom could be? What exactly were they drawing on? First, they were drawing on their own experience. The founders knew that the country would never have survived the Revolutionary War if the colonists hadn't owned their own weapons. The very first battles of the Revolutionary War, the battles of Lexington and Concord, started when 800 expertly trained British soldiers came to seize the weapons of the citizens. Those colonists, those Americans, were untrained. They only had their personal weapons, their muskets and pistols to fight back. One American named Samuel Whitmore was 78 years old. Now think about that. In the 1770s, the average life expectancy was less than 40. As the British were retreating from the battle, Samuel hid behind a wall on his property. He ambushed the British all by himself. He shot one with his personal musket. He then shot 2 more with personal dueling pistols. All 3 of those British soldiers died from their wounds. For his heroism, Samuel was shot in the cheek, bayoneted 6 times, and clubbed repeatedly. The British left him there to die, but he refused to. He got medical treatment and he lived another 18 years. He lived to see American independence secured, to see the ratification of the Constitution, to see George Washington elected as the first president of the United States. And when the Revolutionary War was over, Samuel Whitmore would go down in history as the oldest, perhaps even the bravest colonial militiaman. That's how the American people won the Revolutionary War. The Continentals challenged the infantry of the British Empire with the same firearms that they used to hunt squirrels and deer and to feed their families. Men like Samuel Whitmore did not ask for permission from their government to own their own firearms. They didn't need it. God gave them that right. Samuel defended his own personal property with his own personal weapons. He defended his own freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have any idea what hard is. We don't have an oppressive foreign government that's marching across our land and threatening to take everything from us. But we all have our part we need to play to defend our liberty. God gave you those liberties. God gave you the right to defend yourself and your family. Our government recognizes that right, but we do not have to ask permission to defend it. Each of us needs to be as bold and as brave as Samuel Whitmore. It doesn't matter if you're 18 or if you're 78. Now, what else did the founding generation understand? They knew human nature. Writing in 1775, Thomas Paine laid it out clearly. With avarice and ambition have a place in the heart of man, the weak will become prey to the strong. The history of every age and nation establishes these truths, and facts need little argument when they prove themselves. Today, I admit the future looks uncertain. I would say clearly it can be found, the answers, studying the past and striving to do better. Let's be teachable. The National Rifle Association has leaders who stand in the vortex for us today, such as Wayne and Susan. We see them and their family walk through the fire for us, and we are grateful for that. But we should also look at headlines from 25 years ago and see what we can learn for today. I want to reference a Washington Post article that was dated June 9th of 1998. It summarizes where we stood then in this battle for freedom, but it also reflects much of today's reality. The Post reported the following. The National Rifle Association installed Charlton Heston as its new president today and loudly applauded his pledge to steer the organization back to the political mainstream from what Heston described as the fringe of American life. The choice of Heston was seen in large part as a response to public relations problems for the NRA. They had intensified recently because of several school shootings and rising calls for stricter gun laws opposed by the group. Now, having the right messenger matters. You ask why I'm here today? Why do I boldly support the NRA? Now, I probably don't look like a traditional NRA member. The media would have us believe that the NRA is only made up of old white guys. And all you old white guys can be proud and raise your hands. But there's a lot of other people, a lot of diversity within the NRA. Well, let me tell you something. I may be a mom and a grandma, but I am the NRA.
At this point, you're probably not avoiding therapy because of
Our daughters and our granddaughters, every American is the NRA. I didn't know I could even be a hunter until I saw my grandma was a hunter, and she was a pretty famous duck hunter. She was good. The Post in that article went on to say that Heston rose to power in the NRA because of the need to soften the organization's public image. Calling the school shootings a child issue, not a gun issue, Heston reasserted the NRA's long-standing position that violence grows from unraveling family values and weak prosecutors and judges. He also added a new twist. He called on the White House to acknowledge many gun violations go unprosecuted for lack of resources. He called on the Justice Department to start prosecuting every federal gun law violation in one major city. This, he said, would include attempts by felons to buy guns, which are rarely prosecuted except in combination with violent crimes. Heston pulled no punches in his first day as president. Referring to the Second Amendment, he said, those dead old white guys who invented this country, they knew what they were talking about. Now, again, this article is from 25 years ago, yet that conversation is so relevant for today. What if prosecutors actually did their jobs instead of going on the political attack? What if the laws we had today were actually enforced? What if, when tragedy happens, families gathered together, they bowed their heads, and they prayed for wisdom and discernment on how to heal hearts and minds, rather than to debate the methods used by those in society who do harm? Our problems are not new, yet the threat is greater. Every time our country stands in the path of danger, it is always the patriots to first hear the call. Even the most common man deserves uncommon freedom, and we, the patriots, must be resolved to take action. Why do the liberals and Joe Biden want our guns? Because it will make it easier for them to infringe on all of our other rights. As the late, great Justice Scalia wrote in the Heller decision, history showed that the way tyrants had eliminated a militia consisting of all the able-bodied men was not by banning the militia, but simply by taking away the people's arms, enabling a select militia or standing army to suppress political opponents. Well, Biden hasn't done that yet, but why is that? Why haven't they achieved their goal? It's because of you, because each of you and every one of you is the NRA, because we have successfully held off federal legislation that would infringe on our fundamental constitutional right to keep and bear arms. We have kept our rights from being infringed. And in the last few years, we've seen government overstep its authority more than ever before. I've said that China didn't just export COVID to the world, they exported communist lockdowns as seemingly the only way of stopping it. In fact, until South Dakota refused, and was the only state that refused to issue any lockdowns, I don't know if political leaders even realized that there was another option. I was shocked at how quickly people gave up their freedoms. Politicians closed churches, so people willingly gave up their freedom of religion. Politicians said you couldn't gather in groups, so people willingly gave up their freedom of assembly. Politicians worked with social media companies to stifle dissent, so people willingly gave up their freedom of speech. I think the American people could learn a thing or two from the NRA. This is not a group of people who give up their God-given constitutional rights willingly. During the pandemic, I spent a lot of time outdoors. Sometimes you just needed a break from the fear and the paranoia that was going on TV and in all the newspapers. My family would often go and relax at a cabin, go fishing, go pheasant hunting. One day I made a video of me shooting a pheasant. I don't know if you've seen it. I had turned to the camera after shooting a bird and said, "Less COVID, more hunting." And the liberals melted down on me. I was a little embarrassed by that video, though, because it took me 3 shots to drop that bird. Obviously, I was a little out of practice. I was making fun of myself. I needed more hunting. It wasn't my best day shooting, and I shouldn't have been surprised when PETA and all the liberal media came unglued and came after me. They couldn't believe that I would say less COVID, more hunting. I was kind of confused by it. Did they want more COVID or less hunting? But since then, we've had less COVID, so thank God. And we've had plenty of more hunting. In fact, South Dakota has the best pheasant hunting in the world. And if you haven't come to enjoy it with us, then you should. But South Dakota's greatest asset is our people. Our state motto is, "Under God, the people rule." And while enduring many challenges over the last several years, we have worked together to turn those challenges into opportunities. Our state is thriving as a result of embracing liberty and personal responsibility. We're setting the standard as the most Second Amendment-friendly state in the nation. The very first bill that I signed as governor guarantees constitutional carry for all law-abiding South Dakotans. I signed legislation to block state and local governments from being able to use an emergency declaration as an excuse to infringe on Second Amendment rights. We strengthened our stand your ground law. We updated the definition of a loaded firearm to mean that if a round is chambered, making it easier to respond in situations when seconds count. And we made South Dakota the first state in America to not charge a fee for any concealed carry permit. In fact, we now even pay for your federal background check. It will not cost you a penny to exercise your Second Amendment rights in South Dakota. While leadership in Washington, D.C. fails to deliver meaningful solutions for the nation, our state will take action. South Dakota enjoys the strongest economy in the country, the lowest unemployment, and unprecedented economic growth. Make no mistake, freedom generated those blessings. Winston Churchill once said, "Never give in, never, 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 except to convictions of honor and good sense." Well, here, my honor and good sense require me to continue to fight for freedom, and that's what I'll do. As I look around this room, I see resolute faces prepared to stand up for honor and for good sense. You are prepared to defend our right to keep and bear arms. I also see a media at the back of the room who insists that we're crazy for doing so. They're prepared at times to shame us and to demonize us. I know they'll attack me for giving this speech and what I've said. But if they think that that's going to stop me, then they weren't paying very much attention during the pandemic. It's not just the media and the big government. It's not just the media and big government that are attacking our rights. Now we've seen banking institutions go after industries that they disagree with. Have you seen that? That they're threatening to withhold funding, cancel loans, and holding them to a different standard than how the left is treated. None have been more impacted than those who support the Second Amendment. Well, not on my watch. I won't stand for it, not in South Dakota.
All right, y'all. So I wanted to play a little bit of that for y'all. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I wanted to play that for y'all because do y'all see like how the talking points is very different? And see, this is the thing when it comes to politics. A lot of time people will say what they know you want and need to hear. And I don't think a lot of these people even have the ability to put half of these things that they say into place. But they will say it. And now we're looking in 2026 at this same woman right here, sitting up here saying all these things. Now she's saying some things that I think a lot of people would agree with and want to be put in place. And then she's saying some things that a lot of people would question. Well, what happened? What changed? What makes you feel different now? We can't be sure. But this is the thing for me. It's the switch up in the hypocrisy. And when it comes to these government officials or, they act as though we are individuals that are not intelligent. They act as though we don't remember what was said. They act as though when people were giving them their votes, that they weren't holding them, to these standards of these talking points of things that they say they stand for and they promise that they can change and put into place. And so I hear a lot throughout this portion of this speech, and I'm going to show y'all one more, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. It's a lot about South Dakota, South Dakota, South Dakota, South Dakota, South Dakota. And I understand that. That's where she was representing at the time. That's where she lived, South Dakota. My question is, does that not apply to anywhere else? Is it only just about, or was it only just about at that time, South Dakota, South Dakota, South Dakota, because you wanted South Dakota's votes? Were you not speaking and standing up for these things for all citizens in all states of the country? Or was it just South Dakota, just your hometown where you rock and you get down and where your friends and family live? We can't be sure. But I don't like listening to people like this, And this is the main thing that made me dislike politics a lot of time, because you can hold these people to the fire and see how they are wishy wishy-washy and shifty. They don't tell the truth. These are not their core values for everyone. Most of the time, these are their core values for themselves and their close, immediate friends and family and people that they care about. It's not everybody. And so listening to that, I just was like, wow. You were speaking so much differently then, but it's because you wanted something. There was something you were trying to get. And then when you got it, I don't know. Did you hold true to everything that you said? And then now, I guess, fast forward down the line, years later, there was something else that you wanted to get. And now you're going to do and say whatever it takes for you to be able to get that position and that recognition too, right? Or holding on to that said position. Whatever it takes. Remember, we talked about this, y'all, and I said this in many of my other lives. Whatever it takes. We are living in a world where people will do whatever it takes. Say whatever it takes. Let's listen to this. This is an interesting one here that I want to go ahead and let y'all listen to. So this is also some words of a speech with Kristi Noem. And very interesting enough, one of the things that she said is that, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm going to get some water. She says, I prefer dangerous freedom. What does dangerous freedom really look like? I don't know. Let's go ahead and listen to a bit of this. Y'all probably might remember. Y'all probably watched this before I even watched it. But let's just listen to how these people shift and change over the years and the things that they say. And let's think about what we're seeing playing out right now in current day time. It really shows you the character of a person. They will stand up there and they'll say and do what needs to be said and done. But at the core, what are your values and what do you truly believe in? How can you so easily switch up? So abruptly switch up. Go from one side all the way to the other. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think.
I became a lifetime member of the NRA. My dad taught us life lessons. He taught us common sense, and often those were taught firearm to mean that if a round is chambered, making it easier to respond in situations when it's not just the media and big government that are attacking our rights. Now we've seen banking institutions go after industries that they disagree with. Have you seen that they're threatening to withhold funding, cancel loans, and holding them to a different standard than how the left is treated? None have been more impacted than those who support the Second Amendment. Well, not on my watch. I won't stand for it. He made this point in Latin, but it translates as, I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Today with this, I'm not sure, do you have a microphone, Wayne? You don't. I get to put words into your mouth then.
There you go. You're doing great.
Wayne is extremely grateful to me for doing this for the NRA today.
On behalf of everyone in this room, gun owners throughout the country, and all our members and firearms owners in the great state of South Dakota, Governor, God bless you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You stay right here. This is Executive Order number 2023-04. The State of South Dakota Office of the Governor, I will be signing it on behalf of protecting those industries related to the gun and firearm industry from being discriminated against by financial institution, banking, credit card, or otherwise. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. I'll wrap up and then we'll go. Okay. As you leave here today, I want you to remember that quote that Thomas Jefferson wrote to James Madison. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. May we all leave here today inspired by our history and the blessings that we all enjoy, as well as the burden of responsibility that rests on your shoulders. Never give in. Never, never, never. Our freedom is in your hands. Thank you.
All right, y'all. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick song break. After that song break, we're going to move right along because we're going to get into our next video with DL Hughley is getting into it, of course. Excuse me, y'all. 1 second. Sorry about that. I had to cough, and I did not want to cough on the mic. So yeah, DL Hughley gets into it and really has, some really fine points to speak about with Megyn Kelly. They're going toe-to-toe and head-to-head. So we're going to get into that video right after this song break, y'all, and I will be right back.
They drag us from the coast, middle passage madness, where we lost the most. Packed in hoes like cargo, spirits in a cage. Built a brand new nation, lived a life of rage. Yeah, we were the property, the 3/5 compromise. Picked the cotton, built the White House with our hands inside. And they watered all the poplar trees with our blood and cries. Yeah, you know what they were for beneath the southern skies. That strange fruit hanging message of their hate. A simple wrong look was enough to seal your fate. To my brown kin, they just stole it, called it manifest. Killed the Aztecs, stole the planes, put them to the west. The good old days, the signs on the wall. They want us broken, silent, waiting for the call. They wanna push us backwards, drag us down to hell, but we ain't going back, not going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. Let's talk about a word. Say your word. Let's talk about a word. See how it's 6 letters, COLORED to politics. Not a person, just a label, just a shade on a chart. A legal way to tear a whole damn race apart. Colored water fountain, colored waiting room, colored entrance round the back, a social living tomb. Jim Crow was the law, man. Segregation was the tool. Taught a child to hate his own skin before he went to school. And it ain't just here, that's the global view. Apartheid, colonization, yeah, they did it there too. That word was a weapon, a boot on the neck to say you live, you die, you move at our check. They want the good old days, the signs on the wall. They want us broken, silent, waiting for the call. They want to push us backwards, drag us down to hell, but we ain't going back. 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 Don't you dare say it's repeating. It never stops. They just got new suits, new slogans, new cops. They ban the books that tell the truth of Act 1. They call a protest riot soon as the marching's done. They tell us get over it, it wasn't us. While they build the same systems of them and us. Gerrymander the district, choke the money from the school. Praise the good old days while they fill the modern jails. This is the warning, this is the last stand. We learned your lessons, now we understand. We are the children of the ones you couldn't break. We are the dream that you could never ever take. We are the fire you tried to douse with ice. We paid the cost, we ain't gon' pay it twice. You want us back in chains, you want us on our knees. We'd rather die right here standing on our feet. This ain't a threat, this is a promise we fulfill. We ain't ever going back. Oh yeah, it's the spirit you taught to
we'll fight you tooth and nail.
All right, y'all. So I'm back, and I did give me some water to try to clear up my throat. I think I'm getting sick from being outside in this cold weather. But I don't like to cough on the mic because I just, that doesn't sound very good. So I'm sorry for that. Y'all have to mute down. But yes, so now after our song break, we're gonna get into our next topic right here. So DL Hughley versus Megyn Kelly. This is the 2026 rematch. So if y'all have ever seen any of the conversations and podcasts before, this is not the first time that DL Hughley and Megyn Kelly have got into it. We got to talk about the fireworks between them. They revisited their old battleground, but this time the stakes are even higher because of what just happened in Minnesota. DL didn't just argue, he dismantled the entire Republican stance on the Second Amendment. He looked Megyn in the eye and asked, why is a pow pow a constitutional right? When a white man walks in a state house with an AR-15, but it is a unaliving warrant when a black man has a permit in a car or at a protest. He called out the hypocrisy of a party that says that they want less government, but cheers when the government uses lethal force against its own citizens. It's a conversation that Megyn struggled to contain, and every second of it was fire. Now, we don't have the full conversation here. It is not available. I tried to find it and I cannot. But we do have some clips and some audios of exactly what was talked about. So DL's argument, he brought up the Philando Castile and now Alex Preddy, men who followed the law, got their permits, and were still unalive for having a weapon. DL's point that he argued was that the Second Amendment is being applied selectively. If the presence of a pow pow is enough to justify a fear for life by an officer, then the Second Amendment effectively doesn't exist for black men. They spoke about the law and order versus freedom. DL's argument, he pointed out that Megyn and her peers often defend constitutional carry, like Noem did, like I just let y'all listen to, back in 2019, as the ultimate freedom. DL asked why that freedom suddenly turns into criminal intent the moment someone uses it to protest government overreach like ICE. He called it situational ethics. And then we have to get into the victim blaming narrative. DL's argument, Megyn tried to pivot, of course, like they always do, to the violent nature of the protests. DL shut it down by saying the media spends more time talking about the ammunition a man had than the unconstitutional actions of the government that brought him out there in the first place. He basically said, you're mad he bought a pow pow to a fight that y'all started. So, child, this was a good conversation. It was a good back and forth, and Megyn Kelly's back was up against the wall. So let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of reporting of this, y'all. And we're going to be doing audio only for this one. But y'all, I want y'all to listen real closely and let me know what y'all think, because a lot of the commentary also surrounding this topic, but from the person who is commentating, I actually do agree with. Sorry to say. But let's go ahead and take a quick listen, y'all. Here we go.
It comes to America, and I've been living in America my whole life, okay? So I see it, I lived it, and even reading history, you get a good understanding of some of the traits and some of the characteristics of America as a whole, okay? And when it comes to America, and even people, foreigners, understand this about America, they understand America is about their guns. Guns, guns, guns. What was their slogan? Guns, babies, and Jesus, or something like that? when it comes to this country, it has this weird obsession of guns. And yes, I own a gun myself. I am a gun owner because once again, gotta protect yourself because there's a lot of weirdos out there. And we live in a country with people who do not need to be owning guns. So weirdly enough, you got to protect yourself with a gun because people who don't need guns own guns. But okay, we're here.
I wanted the word cuppa as in cup of tea.
But now in 2026, the Democratic Party are the ones defending the Second Amendment, while Republicans are the ones trying to act like it just doesn't exist at this point, which is crazy because progressives have always been on the side of we understand the Second Amendment, we appreciate it, but it needs to be heavily regulated. We need guardrails. We need basic policies around owning and operating firearms, which we just don't got or very little states operate in. So here's some facts for that ass so you can understand the weird world that we're living in. It's like the Twilight Zone. And yes, I'm not old enough to remember the Twilight Zone, but my mom had it on VHS. And every once in a while, I was bored as a kid, so I would watch some Twilight Zone. Okay, so, but it feels like we're living in that time. Like, I should not be arguing with Republicans on basic Second Amendment rights. It's weird, but here's some facts. 500 million firearms estimated in civilian possession as of around 2025 based on background checks and manufacturing data. Other analysis estimate 393 to 506 million total firearms owned by civilians, reflecting different counting methods. The U.S. has the highest gun ownership per capita in the world. I thought it was Switzerland. Okay, so everyone who heard me said it was Switzerland. It's not Switzerland. It's America. I think Switzerland is like either second or third. But that's horrible. That's bad. Okay. The U.S. has the highest gun ownership per capita in the world, roughly 120 firearms per every 100 people. And this is the America that Republicans wanted. This is the America that Republicans constantly fear-mongered Americans to. Remember that. In 2023, there were approximately 46,728 gun-related deaths in the United States, according to CDC mortality data. This includes homicides, suicides, accidents, law enforcement related shootings, etc. In 2024, there were around 568 mass shootings. 568 mass shootings, resulting in 711 deaths, 203,000 or 2 year. Right there.
Killed the way that for instance, Alex Peretti was killed. And there is a political headwind against you. You never die once. They kill your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
They kill your history. They kill your thought. They have to villainize you. They have to destroy you so that it makes them, they have to blow out your candle so theirs burn brighter.
Mm.
And so you don't just die once, you die over and you die over and over again. You'll have people on the internet who don't know anything about this man, but have already created this narrative where he's a monster. And I think most people have seen past it. Most people understand what it is because we know what we saw. That man, there's nothing but it say no greater love does a man have than to lay down his life for his brother.
Woo.
I think he was very well aware of the danger he was in. I think that he understood with the potential of things. I guess apparently his parents had told him that it was a dangerous situation, and he did it anyway. And I don't think there's anything more humane than that. And then you have this contortion of the right arguing against guns, like the Second Amendment people are now having to find themselves in a position where they're having to say, well, you can have a gun, but you can't have it. We have spent the better part of the last, ever since, I guess, the automatic weapon ban lapsed, there has been a proliferation of weapons in any kind of incarnation. They want unfettered access to weapons. They want them in schools. They want teachers to have them. They want college students to have them. We've seen shootings at malls and country concerts and gay clubs and black churches and grocery stores and outdoor fairs. And every time those things happen, they never want to point at the gun. As a matter of fact, if you do that, they'll say you're politicizing it, and nothing more political than the safety of people.
Hey, that right there, when he said it, you know, I have a bad memory. I got to always write things down because I will forget some stuff. I wrote that down. That right there is bars. The next time, which I'm pretty sure, you know, we're due for another mass shooting here. It's 2026, guys. What's going on? Every time they say, why are you trying to make this political? Guns in this mass shooting, it's not political. Hey, when it's regarding lives, it's always political. When it's regarding the safety of U.S. citizens, it's political. What do we Hey, thank you, Mr. DL Hughley, for dropping some facts for me to work with. Hey, bars right there.
But they'll say you politicize it. Now, all of a sudden, the gun was the problem. Like, it's easier to get guns in America than Sudafed. Like, you can buy all the guns you want. You buy 2 packs of Sudafed, you're going to have to give a driver's license and make an accounting for yourself. And now we're doing all this thing where the right has to convince us. At one point, it was the right who was worried about the government becoming these jackbooted thugs, and they would have helicopters and tanks, and they would break into people's homes. And now that is happening, they don't have a problem with it because the government they're trying to prevent them for, they serve. And now all of a sudden, a man who never used the gun, never brandished the weapon, never threatened anybody, is the symbol for all that's wrong in this country. I said this before, like me and Megyn Kelly had this argument. And also in Minnesota, if we're going back, maybe I think 2016 or 2015, there was a young man named Philando Castile. He was a black man with his family in the back, told law enforcement he had a gun, and he was still killed. And he was a gun owner. He told him he was a licensed gun owner. He told him he had a concealed permit. He had the gun out in plain sight. They still killed him. This is me arguing with Megyn Kelly on her show.
Here's what we do know. He had a permit to carry a gun. When you get a permit to carry a gun, they tell you exactly how to act when a police officer.
That doesn't mean he didn't threaten the officer.
You're willing to give them a presumption of.
I'm not giving them presumption. Well, the law gives them the presumption.
No, their badge gives
we
them a
don't know
presumption.
the facts. I mean, we saw this happen with Michael Brown and Ferguson,
and we still don't know the facts there. We have a police officer's word and a grand jury's word.
No, we have the Department of Justice's word.
The Department of Justice shut down Ferguson. Ferguson had to be shut down because it was so corrupt.
The Department of Justice found that the police there had endemic racism. They found that.
Right.
But they also exonerated Officer Derek Wilson.
That's not a...
And they found hands up, don't shoot was a
Let me
lie,
ask you something.
and that Michael Brown was the aggressor.
Wow. Here's what I'll say.
Don't wow me.
The only place racism doesn't exist is Fox News and the police department. That's the only place. That's absolutely true.
That's insulting. You just insulted millions of people watching this channel.
And you know what? I'm insulted by the things I hear on this network, so we're even. I could care less about insulting people that insult me on a daily basis.
Side note,
hey, that is the DL. That's DL when he didn't have the gray hairs. So we already know DL's has always been on this. He didn't just jump in on a bandwagon because it's popular now. He's always been about this. This is why people like myself put respect on his name. You see what I'm saying? And that's just straight bars right there. I love it. Once again, DL put some respect on it.
Megyn Kelly is the evilest human being I've ever seen. I can only hope that this bitch gets a eternal yeast infection. I swear to God, I hope she gets a yeast infection and that they have no more monostat.
Yikes.
I hope that she walks along and a biscuit falls on her ass every day. I hate her that much. But somebody who couldn't have the slightest modicum of compassion. And the NRA who's conflicted and never really mounted much of a defense for Philando Castile. It just kind of became this thing that went away. Either we are going to be able, in a society that you all insist have to have these unfettered access to weapons. Policemen have to understand that a great many people, like in Minnesota, are going to have weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Ohio, like in Pennsylvania, like in Texas, like in Florida. They're making the laws more and more lax. They even want 18-year-olds to be able to have a gun. 18 years old. You can have a gun, but you can't rent a car. They want to do guns with no background checks.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to be able to walk around. But now all of a sudden, the gun is a problem. In America, when you hear people on the right yelling freedom, they only want two freedoms. They want the freedom to carry guns wherever they want and to tell women what to do with their bodies. Those are the only kind of freedoms they're trying to expand.
Yeah, I also think it's really interesting how one of the things that Trump ran on was protecting, basically white women, right?
Sure.
And what Alex was doing was protecting a woman.
Two of them.
And was everything that they say they want. An upstanding citizen.
License to gun, that right, to gun safety. I think that is, first off, I don't understand why ICE is at a state that has such a low population of immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only reason ICE went there because it was so snowy and white, it was easy to identify brown people. like Texas has more, California has more, Arizona has more, Nevada has more.
Yeah.
This is about punishing those people. That's really what this is about. This is about making sure that somebody who voted against me or ran against me is punished.
Yep.
And it was under the auspices of immigration, of keeping people safe. But the interesting thing, if you look at what's happened, in the last 45 days, ICE has shot 17 people. 17 people. Now, 10 of them have died. And 3 of them have been American. They're on pace to kill more than 100 people. If any police department or law enforcement agency in the country had that kind of death rate, there's no way in the fuck nobody would investigate them.
Hey.
All right, y'all. So, this is DL Hughley. We're listening to him. He's on his podcast. He has a panel of people with him on his podcast that he is speaking with as well. And then there is a commentator that is also on the side watching said podcast and DL's comments and commentating on them. And we're watching all of them commentate and joining into the conversation. So that's what's going on here. But we know or if you haven't known, there was that clip where we did hear Megyn Kelly and DL going, toe to toe with each other. That was years ago, right? So they have gotten into it before with the same talking points around, a lot of the things that's going on in this country, especially around gun violence and things of that nature. And so we're listening to this, and DL in typical DL fashion is going to throw a little bit of comedy in there. So y'all, if y'all see that I put a LOL or if I'm laughing in something like that in the comment section here, I am not laughing at the situation because there's nothing funny about this situation. I'm laughing at the jokes that he made. Exactly what he said. When it comes to us doing our research, you will see actually there is truth within the joke. So, in Minnesota, there aren't that many immigrants there. That is not one of the largest states that have immigrants or people of color, we can say, right? If that's what they want to call it, because they say this is how they speak about it. And on YouTube, you have to say things in a certain way. So if y'all hear me saying things in a certain way, child, don't blame it on me and how I speak and how I represent people and speak about people. We have to jump through all of these hoops on YouTube. So I have to say things in a certain way. But anyway, so that couldn't be further from the truth. And so then you ask yourself, why would a state like this in a small city like this be targeted and have these, you know, extreme amount of ICE officers running through the city doing these so-called mass deportations, which we are seeing now is not even them, you know, detaining illegal immigrants. These are legal people, legal immigrants. These are American citizens. Majority of the count is that people who have done it the right way, whether they're, you know, originally from this country or not, but wanted to come to this country for a better life and better opportunities, which this country has sold and said, this is what we're here for, and we welcome it with open arms. You just got a few steps and things that you got to do to be able, you know, to get everything in the works and the process and stuff like that. And once you do it, welcome on in, come on in and bear the fruits of, you know, what we have here to offer in this country. And these are things that have been promoted, they have been promised, and they have been put in place when it comes to this country. And we are looking at now individuals who have heard that and wanted to take those opportunities and did it the right way, or was on their way, very much so on their way, on par, on the calendar, on the proper timeline to take the next steps as to which they would be citizens of this country. They have not let them get to that level. Then we have some that have done everything right. They didn't care about that because of how they look and what they assume, that they are illegals. Then we have citizens, right? People that were born in this country, on this soil, and have families here, born in this country, on this soil, that are being detained, that are being abused, that are being unalived. This is what we're looking at and we're dealing with. This is the truth of the matter of the situation. And so, you know, I know it's like it seems we're beating a dead horse when it comes to this, but we can't stop talking about it because of the severity of the situation. This is what's happening. And then anything they can throw into the mix to make an excuse for the hateful, harmful behavior that they're carrying out on people, they keep trying to raise the bar. So now when we're talking about, okay, when we just heard the first portion of the live, when we're talking about gun laws and the right to carry, right? We hear of Kristi Noem, right? Several years ago in a very different stance, with a very different talking point, with very different importance as to the things that she believed we should be able to have based off of the Second Amendment, fighting for it and keeping it in position. And now all of a sudden, that very same thing that falls under rights and amendments that we are supposed to have in this country, you want to weaponize against people to fit them in a box or a narrative to make it okay. So when these reports come out on the news, you have an excuse as to why you hurt these people, you harm these people, you unalived and gunned down these people like common ducks, if you let her tell it, because that's what she said, they was hunting ducks in the daggone pond or the street. And we are human beings. We should never be treated that way. And then you want to come up with excuses as to why it happened. So much so that you will try to sit here and pretend that the amendments that we have, the rights that we have, the Constitution that's in place that they made, that y'all made, y'all created it, y'all put it in place for this country as citizens of this country. And you have to give these people the proper just due, because a lot of these people that have been mistreated and have been unalived are citizens of this country. And you're trying to take away their lives. You're trying to take away their rights. And you sit here and you throw it in our face like some type of mixed up puzzle or Where is Waldo book, as if we're not intelligent enough to break this stuff down for what it really is. And I am loud. I am. I have a preachy tone. I understand. And I apologize if that comes off offensive to anybody. I don't mean to be loud. I don't mean to be offensive. I don't mean to be, aggressive. But when it comes down to us breaking down the truth of the matter of what is happening here, what we are seeing with our own two eyes, what we're bearing witness to every day, every hour of the day, every 30 minutes or minute of the day, we have to be honest about what we're seeing and what is happening. And this is why I like listening to individuals that may have, the range, the platform, the fame, the popularity to be able to say it the way it needs to be said. And as we're seeing now, we have journalists that are trying to do that. And what is happening to them? They're ending up behind jail bars for just pointing out the truth and bringing the truth to the people and showing people what it looks like. It's hard to watch. I get it. A lot of people want to turn their head and pretend that they didn't see it. A lot of people want to go on with their day and act like it didn't happen, but it is happening. And you did see it. And now it is up to us to say something about it. And if we're in a position, do something about it, because it's not right. And if we continue to allow these things to happen and turn a blind eye to it, it will not stop and it will not change. And it'll only be a matter of time before maybe it is you or me that's in that predicament. We have to have care and empathy when somebody else is going through an injustice. We have to be able to talk about it realistic. I don't like having to speak in code. I don't like having to speak in Ebonics. I want to tell it like it is, because that adds to the severity and the importance of what we're witnessing and what we're seeing playing out. And we have to have these hard conversations. It's not easy. You think it's easy for me? Most of the time when I'm reporting on these topics and I'm doing these lives, right before I cry, right after I cry, on the break I cry, and I get angry. I get sad. I want to be able to do more. I don't think it's right and it's fair. I want to see this world and us as a people in a better place. It is my deepest desire. All I can do is come on these lives and spread this information so we can be aware, so we can be educated. We can have conversations around it, even though we may not agree. We must open up the door to do that. And I hope people understand that that's all I desire to do. Yeah, I get a little bit loud like this. And I know that can be scary for people. They don't like that. They don't desire that. Maybe that's just not how they rock and they roll. It's passion. It's passion and it's emotion. I'm trying. Y'all see me trying. I'm doing better. Because I've been, I don't do it as often as I used to. And I try to keep it very, just reporter-ish. But at the end of the day, I'm not a reporter. I'm not a journalist. I don't know what I am outside of being a human being, a person that cares about other human beings and people. And I just think we have to have these conversations. I really, really do. But anyway, let's get back into the video, y'all. It seems like when I talk like this and when I say these things, people they shy away. I don't understand what that is about. I gotta ask somebody. I don't get it. But anyway, it's cool when they do it. It's a problem when I do it. It's all right. It's all good. Let's keep going.
Straight bars right there. Once again, if you guys are not subscribed to his channel, go ahead, subscribe to his channel. I think this is like a weekly type of show that he's putting out. I'm subscribed to it. You need to subscribe to it. I'm not going to play his entire, 30-minute video here. Go ahead, show some respect, give him the view, give him the subscription. But he's not lying. He is not lying, and we can't be fooled by the smoke and mirrors. Oh, this is for, protecting, U.S. citizens. This is to stop, illegal immigrants who are creating all this crime, which is not based in any statistics. We need to understand this administration is willing to do anything, say anything, and be the biggest hypocrite you can find. They don't care about being a hypocrite. They don't care about being shameful. As long as they're pushing their agenda ahead, they're going to say anything and everything. If it has something to do with abortion, they will be pro-choice. They'll be saying, hey, I don't give a damn when women, abort these babies. We need to protect, we need to get these immigrants out of here. They do not care. They have no principles. They don't have any standards. And they're proving that to us every single day. So wake the hell up. I know not you. If you're watching my channel and you're subscribed, you already know this. We've been talking about this. But if you're new and you may not understand, please get with.
All right, y'all. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick song break. After the song break, we're moving right along. We're going to get into our next topic that we got to talk about, y'all. Okay. So, this is going to be a topic that I don't know. I don't know how people are going to feel about this, but I want to talk about it. I feel as though it's something that needs to be discussed and brought to the forefront. And I understand, like I said, it's like we're beating a dead horse here, but we don't want to beat dead horses. We don't want to keep having the same conversation over and over again. We don't want to keep bearing witness to the same type of treatments and discriminations over and over again. But unfortunately, still, in the year of 2026, we look with our own two eyes and hear with our own two ears and bear witness to things that are playing out and happening, and we're putting the pieces together. We're very much intellectual individuals, and we see things for what they are sometimes. Is there another caveat? Is there another side? Could it possibly be for a different reason? Yeah, all of those things could be true as well. But what we know at the core is what we really are seeing patterns of. And so we're going to get into it, okay? So as far as the DOJ, right, going after not just Don Lemon, but several other journalists, there's conversations around that. And Jemele Hill, I want us to listen to her because she has some really great talking points when it comes to it. So instead of me talking, y'all, I want y'all to listen to Jemele. And I want y'all to listen to the panel that's with her and the talking points as far as what we are seeing and what type of patterns we can deduce from what is happening. And that's all I'm going to say on that. I'm not going to get too detailed about it. But I'm going to go ahead and take a quick song break, and we'll be right back. We'll get into that video, okay? Jemele Hill on CNN with the panel speaking about the DOJ and how they have been targeting journalists. We'll be right back.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let it ring out loud. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea, like the mighty waters. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. We remember it all. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Hope is alive, yeah. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on. Let's keep marching till victory is won. Stony the road we trod. Bitter the castanete rock. But we're still here. Hey.
And my panel is back with me. She says very clearly, Adam, that she believes that this started in Los Angeles and it's part of an ongoing effort of Donald Trump's to erode democracy.
I think all of Donald Trump's actions over the past year have been an attempt to erode democracy, and he's becoming increasingly desperate as we head into the midterm. So the attacks on the press are attacks to make sure there's not transparency. Attacks on college campuses or colleges, it's to make sure that critical thinking students aren't coming out of these colleges to debunk the administration. He attacks law firms. He attacks any single check. And this is a perfect example of him trying to push a chilling effect within independent journalism. So Don Lemon is an independent journalist. I think independent journalism is incredibly important. And it's the one variable this administration hasn't really gone after super hard. So now he's targeting not only Don Lemon, but multiple other people in order to create this overall chilling effect, which erodes democracy.
Abby, can I pick up on something that Mayor Bass said? I live in Los Angeles, and so very obviously very aware of the presence of ICE and what it had been there during the time that she was referring. But I want to talk about what she said in terms of mentioning why we need to remind ourselves of the racial element of this. There is a reason why I think a reason why Donald Trump not only picked independent journalists, but Black journalists in particular. Clearly, we know there's no love lost between Don Lemon and Donald Trump, that he's been very critical of the president. The president they've gone back and forth. But if we go back and undo all the layers of all of this, it was Black journalists that were really at the forefront of calling Donald Trump out, from the birtherism movement throughout a lot of the things that they saw early before the rest of the press really picked up on some of the things that concerned a lot of Black journalists. Hello, me, who also called out Donald Trump in 2017. And the reason why I think he picked these particular journalists is being independent. You don't have the backing of a CNN. You don't have the backing of a big network. The other part of it, too, is that if you can make them the face of this issue that is happening in Minneapolis, we know that given some of the racial issues that we have in this country, it is likely to have a lot less sympathy because they are journalists, one, and people hate the press, and two, because they're Black. And so I do think that that's an important part of this, especially given the president's own language when it comes to anti-DEI and making Black people the face of woke, and all that we've heard from this administration. All of this is combined together and meant to drum up a certain sentiment against these journalists so that people are supporting their own rights being eroded because of who they think it's happening to.
Even if you don't agree that there's race as an underlying factor here, it does seem very clear that the Trump administration, Lydia, views this as a slam dunk because Don in particular can be polarizing. And I think they feel like it's an easy way for them to chip away at the media. And look, again, you don't have to like or agree with anything that Don has said or done, but the right of the media, as you pointed out, extends not just to, Don, but also even to conservative media as well. And that's the part I don't understand. Why is it suddenly okay just because it's Don Lemon, just because it's Georgia Ford, that Trump is trying to criminalize the exercise of the free press, the actual reporting that they were doing on the ground?
Well, also, I just want to respond because you accused me of mischaracterizing the indictment. This is actually a quote from the indictment that Lemon posted himself at the main door of the church, where he confronted some congregants and physically obstructed them as they tried to exit, challenging them with facts about U.S. immigration policy. So that is what the indictment says. I'm not stating whether I agree with that, but that's what the indictment says. So look,
they also characterized him as intimidating a pastor who he was calmly interviewing. So I think we also have to, the characterization of him conducting journalism is also something to be questioned.
Look, I think there's obviously a lot of journalists in Minneapolis. The notion that they're just randomly targeting somebody because of their politics or their race is a little unfair. They, if you read the indictment, are going after him because they think that he acted more as a protester than a journalist. But again, I think we need to be really careful when it comes to freedom of the press.
And you brought up that Capitol January 6th person from the Blaze who was charged, and I looked it up because there are a few other examples that I actually have of some of the things that those other people who claim to be journalists did. But this other person, Steve Baker, said, well, first of all, he entered the Capitol through a broken window. He antagonized police officers who were trying to keep him out. He said in an affidavit he approved 100% of what was happening. He stood in Nancy Pelosi's office and says, the only thing that I regret is that I didn't steal the computer because God knows what I could have found on their computers if I had done that. So pretty egregious conduct, which is why he pled guilty and then waited for a pardon, which later came from President
Well, again,
Trump.
it's that line between journalist and participant. And one other detail, and it was interesting that the mayor picked up on this because I picked up on this as well earlier, having done a lot of bail hearings. The prosecution here asked the judge to take Don's passport, to make him post bail, and to restrict his travel to New York and Minnesota,
and
right, for the court.
Because he's on the lam.
The legal reason you ask for those restrictions is because you believe someone is a risk of flight. We're going to have the fugitive Don Lemon. This guy doesn't go below 14th Street here in Manhattan. And he's going to take off to some foreign country. I mean, it's overkill by DOJ. And I think they're tipping their hand by that kind of thing.
It's not believable, right? You go before a judge and you say something like that, and the judge is like,
where's he going?
How
is he going somewhere?
Can we just talk about Karen Bass for a minute, too? She said she wakes up every day worried about Donald Trump. I mean, 7,000 houses burned down, and she was in Ghana last year. I think she should wake up every day trying to get those houses rebuilt. There's only been 10 that have been rebuilt. LA is a disaster. I was there last week. RVs lining the street because there's 200,000 people who don't have homes. I'm very tired, especially of Mamdani and Bass opining on all of these national issues when their cities need people who are managing what's going on the street.
Her city is often under attack by the person that is the president. I think
Who
she
also
has
wants
every
houses to be more expensive. Anyway,
exactly.
so.
I think she has every right to be concerned.
He quite literally said that.
Coming up next, despite below freezing temperatures, millions of Americans across the country joined anti-ICE protests just as the DOJ decided to open a civil rights investigation into the shooting of Alex Preddy. We'll be right back.
All right, y'all. So that was just a real quick clip. That one wasn't long. I just wanted to play that for just a little bit of context of conversation that is, happening around the round table when it comes to, other journalists that may be seeing it and from different views. And I did really think it was pretty interesting to watch. I didn't understand the one lady with the red suit. Like, she seemed very upset that none of her talking points were sticking. She was very confused as to what was being said, and it's like, that is a problem that we still are struggling with and dealing with, is like this smug attitude that a lot of people have, where it's less like they know that they're right. Anything else that you say is wrong. They refuse to see it that way. And nobody has to see things the same way. That's understandable. But to at least have some respect around it and at least see where people are coming from when they talk about these things. But anyway, moving on from that, y'all. We're about to go ahead and get into our final video and coverage for this live. And so, y'all, this one is going to be interesting, y'all, because y'all know who this is, Loud Mouth. So go ahead and turn y'all volume down. But anyway, this is coming from Stephen A. Smith. And he is having a conversation with legal analyst DL Hughley. I hope I'm saying that right. And they are talking about, this arrest with Don Lemon. And a pretty interesting conversation. I wanted you guys to hear just a bit of that. It is not too long. I think it's going to put us pretty much just slightly over the 2-minute mark. I'm not going to play all of it. I'm going to play, just at least the beginning part of the conversation for y'all. Y'all will hear some interesting conversations. So let's just go ahead and get into this real quick, y'all. I'm going to put this up on the screen, and I'll meet you in the chat per usual. Give me just a second. Okay, here we go. Come on. I'm so slow tonight. Give me just a sec.
Beef, you want the who said what, but when the blood is in the street, you keep your big mouth shut. You run the numbers up for clicks on every toxic lil, but skip the stream about the kids who barely can survive. You're addicted to the circus dancing for $1 bill, while experimenting on us popping every kind of pill. Algorithm got you trapped, a digital lobotomy. You'd rather watch a dummy tech than learn about autonomy. Low vibrations, yeah, that's all you crave. Mind of a zombie, walking to the grave. Talk about the spirit, talk about the fight. You vanish like a ghost, you're disappearing in the night. Dumbass zombies, sleepers in the cell. Build your own prison in this digital hell. Low vibrations. We moving on. Hypertext is boring, spiritual rarity is deep. That's exactly what they wanted, just to keep your soul asleep. They shout down when I good. They're hunting for the press, and you're arguing in comments about a rapper summer dress. It's a war on your mind, it's a war on your health, but you're too busy scrolling, giving stupid all your wealth. I'm a golden queen, I'm 10 toes down in the mud, while you're chasing cloud and spilling everybody's blood. Are you a fan of your own destruction? Is the gossip worth your soul? Unplug the wire. Debate the self. Mama Warrior told you. Now bring it back. Low vibrations, yeah, that's all you crave. Mind of a zombie, walking to the grave. Talk about the spirit, talk about the fight. You vanish like a ghost, you're disappearing in the night. Dumbass zombies, sleepers in the cell. Build your own prison in this digital hell. Let's go. Vibrations. Yeah. Numbers drop when the truth gets loud, but I'd rather have a few than a brainless crowd. It's a veil to the world, high frequency only. Mama, warrior, golden queen. Sickness spreads in whispers, in poison wells and corrupted content. But a community with a strong immune system develops its own antidote. This is the cure. Listen. Listen, there's a venom in the discourse, a toxin in the talk, a parasitic agent feasting on the soul of the block. It spreads through the timeline, infecting the youth, disguising as poison. In the fragment of truth, it preaches self-interest, promotes the individual dream. Anything to fracture the collective, to poison the stream. We see the symptoms in the envy, the distrust that you breed. You planting seeds of chaos, fulfilling the system's need. This ain't about a person, this is about a constitution. You're a weapon of division, a tool of social pollution. Like, the agenda's getting bold. Why? Your people have been sold. Jig is up. You're the poison, the cancer, and the cold. You don't fight for the cause. You just lighten the load for the oppressed. Lie. Hear the conscience, see the fraud. Bye. Your whole damn act's a fraud. symptom of the sickness, a tool of the trade. For every conscience that we take, you pull us from the shade back into the darkness. Fighting sister against brother while you collect the profits, then go poison another. You weaponize our trauma, you monetize our pain. Tell us to tear each other down for your temporary gain. You speak the language of the people with the motives of the state. Asleep a cell of selfishness designed to make us hate. But the body's getting stronger, the fever's starting to break. We can finally see the difference between what's real and what's fake. Like, my, the agenda's getting bold. Why? People have been sold, jig is up. You're the poison, the cancer, and the cold. You don't fight for the cause, you just lighten the load for the soul. My, yeah, the conscience see the fraud. Bye. Your whole damn act's a fraud. But the antidote is unity, the cure is in the roots. It's the knowledge of the elders and the fire in the boots of a generation rising that refuses to be bought. Recalling all the lessons that our ancestors taught. We cleanse the foundation, rebuild the immune to make the collective a garden where the real seeds can bloom. You can't poison a forest that shares a single source. We are the uprising, the unstoppable force. This is a conscious rebellion, a surgical strike to separate the healthy cells from the ones you're alike. This is more than a track, it's a call to the core to protect the foundation of what we're fighting for. So let them have the clout, let them have the fake fame while we reclaim the power that's attached to our name. Every word is a brick, every verse is a wall to protect the community and watch the poisoners fall. So let the record show a community divided is a target, a community infected is a tragedy, but a community united is a revolution. And the golden rule: protect the people. My. Protect the people. Protect the people. My. Protect the people. The people presence. My. My.
All right, y'all. So we about to go ahead and get into this last video. Give me just a second. I'm gonna get it pulled up on the screen for y'all, and we're gonna hear just a little bit of this conversation. I want y'all to see, and let me know how y'all feel about it. But of course, yeah, this is from Stephen A. Smith, and him being a journalist himself, he had a lot to say about what he saw and bear witness. You know, Don and a few other journalists go through, and so. Pretty interesting conversation. We're not going to play all of it, but we will play some of it, y'all. So let me go ahead and get that up on the screen real quick, and we will listen to that audio. Give me just a second. And we got to skip these ads, y'all. I hope y'all are enjoying the live. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Let me put this up here. Boom. All right, I'll meet y'all in the chat per usual.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of Straight Shooter with yours truly. As always, I tell you, I'm usually on SiriusXM POTUS Radio with Straight Shooter with Stephen A. every Wednesday night from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over SiriusXM POTUS Radio channel 124. But there's a couple of days a week I always come on YouTube to do my own thing. And this is one of those times because one of the biggest stories in the country right now, if not the biggest story in the country, involves former CNN journalist and host, now independent journalist Don Lemon. Former CNN anchor was arrested by federal agents in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, California, late Thursday night. According to his lawyer, a week after a magistrate judge declined to sign off on a complaint charging him over his involvement in an anti-immigration enforcement protest that disrupted a church service in Minnesota weeks ago. According to the reports, Don Lemon was federally charged on Friday with conspiracy to deprive rights and interfering with First Amendment rights, according to the Department of Homeland Security officials. He's being charged with 18 USC 241. That's conspiracy to deprive rights, which makes it illegal for, quote, two or more persons to agree to injure, threaten, or intimidate a person in the United States in a free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured by the Constitution or laws of the United States. This is according to the Department of Justice. He's also charged under 18 U.S.C. 248, which is a violation of the FACE Act or the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which is a 1994 federal law that deals with access to health clinics, but also covers interference with religious worship as well as conspiracy statutes. So to put it plainly, there was a protest that was taking place, and the protest that was taking place, it interrupted a church service, okay? And it interrupted that church service. Don Lemon appeared to know that folks were going to show up to this church to protest because the pastor of this particular church in St. Paul's, the church, it interrupted a Sunday service at City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. It targeted a pastor who they said also worked for the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is ICE, obviously. So they went to that church to protest that pastor. And obviously, people are looking at the FACE Act. You're not supposed to interrupt services. You're not supposed to be doing these things. You should have stayed outside, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what they're going off about Don Lemon for. Because he was in the church. He interviewed the pastor. He was interviewing folks that were inside the church, members of the congregation, et cetera, along with others. He was talking to them, having it reported back to his channel, the Don Lemon Show, and what have you. He was doing it. And they're trying to say, we don't give a damn if you were there as a journalist or not. You had no right to do what you do. It's in violation of the FACE Act. Now, having said all of that, let's get down to the nuts and bolts of this. You're violating his First Amendment rights. First of all, there's the issue of freedom of speech. Secondly, there's his freedom as a journalist, freedom of the press. And whether you like it or not, Don Lemon is a member of the press. Don Lemon has been in journalism for 30 years, if not more. Don Lemon worked at CNN for 17 years. And just because you don't have a specific organization that you're working for, that's where the word independence comes from. It doesn't mean that your journalism credentials are stripped. Not when you've been doing it for decades like him. Let's understand that. This is straight BS what he's going through. But I tell you the story that everybody's missing from this. Everybody is missing this story. Okay? Not only did we know that the president is petty and vindictive, just look at James Comey. Let's look at Letitia James. Let's look at Jack Smith. Just look at, John Bolton. And now we see Don Lemon as well. You're clearly about vengeance. You're clearly on a vengeance and a vindictive tour. That much is obvious. You're clearly weaponizing law enforcement in this country. Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem. You see, it's clear what you're doing. So it's bad enough that that's obvious. It's bad enough that magistrate judges turned you down when you tried to file charges against them earlier. It's bad enough that you tried to appeal it and you got turned down again and you had to go for a third try. And Lord knows what you did to conjure up the charges to justify you arresting this man in Beverly Hills while he was working the Grammys, by the way. And everybody there is talking about it. So now you got Hollywood, everybody going crazy because they know what's happened to him. Here's the story that everybody's missing when it comes to Don Lemon. Trump just made him a boatload of money and elevated his notoriety exponentially. If Don Lemon wasn't known before, and he was known, if he wasn't known before, if he wasn't generating revenue before, shake, Sinora, shake your body. If his popularity hadn't elevated exponentially before, it certainly has now. This is going to backfire on Donald Trump. This is going to backfire on Pam Bondi, who, whether she knows it or not, is losing credibility with each passing day because of stuff like this. There's no excuse for this. There's none. There's absolutely none. This is petty. It's vindictive. It's an abuse of law enforcement. No question about it. But the one thing it's not is a surprise. The thing about it is, like I said, the storyline is that Trump is going to end up looking like the fool in all of this. This is the White House earlier today. Don Lemon arrested. This is from the White House. This is what they posted. Don Lemon arrested for involvement in the St. Paul church riots. And then it says, when life gives you lemons. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. You know what it also shows? Prejudice. It also shows that. Why does it show that? Because they're showing that they're targeting him. They're showing that it's not about the law, it's about him. On the part of the president of the United States and folks working directly under him, his subordinates, and what they're willing to do. And what cause would the president of the United States have to go after Don Lemon? You ask, let's show a few things that Don Lemon has said about the president over the years, over the months, over the last few weeks and days, because that's how long they've been going at one another. Griff, take it away.
Now, if they wanted to make someone person of the year, they would have made someone who, and my God, I'm sure he loves this, right? If they wanted to make someone person of the year, I don't know, they could have done it with any person. People, they could have done it to someone who actually stood for democracy, who stands for democracy in the country. Now, you think about what encompasses person of the year. Just because you are elected president of the United States does not mean that you should be person of the year. What Time Magazine, what are you doing? Let me ask you, Time Magazine. What do you say to the women who, I guess, still read Time Magazine? Or the women who don't they do like a whole Time 100 thing or something, which, what about the women who are on that list? What about that? I'm sure some of them will had dealt with issues that women have to deal with, like discrimination in the workplace, SA, all kinds of things. You have someone on the cover of your magazine who is an adjudicated assaulter. You have someone who inspired an insurrection. You have someone who, without a doubt, the evidence is there, tried to overturn a free and fair election. Some farmers say, without these workers, they have about 2 days that they can run their farms. And then after that, it's over. Oh my gosh, I love this. Now you're finding out, you dumb fucking idiots. Now you're just figuring this shit out. You're so fucking stupid and you deserve it. You fucking deserve it because you're so dumb. Jim, it's hypocrisy. So go with me here. Yes, I am gloating over your stupidity and how you were taken. I'm cackling in Kamala, says in Shanta. You have been co-opted because you're in a fucking cult and you don't even realize it because you have stupid MAGA brain.
Attention, ICE. Let me just say something that most journalists will not say. They can't say it. I understand that. But I'm an independent journalist now, so I can't say it. Fuck off, ICE. Fuck all the way off. You are low-life losers, and you feel empowered by your dear leader, Donald Trump. You've never had this position of power before, small person, and you are treating people in an inhumane way, and you don't even understand why, because you're too dumb to figure it out.
See what I'm saying? To know Trump, to know how petty he can be, to know how vindictive he can be, to know that you've literally seen elected officials saying, well, they did go after him. They really put him through a lot of stuff like that. In other words, they're justifying the vengeance. They're justifying the vindictiveness. That's what they're doing.
Shake, 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 Sinora, shake your body.
Ladies and gentlemen, be very, very clear. That's what's going on here. and it's coming from me, along with many, many others. I'm not one that thinks it was particularly wise for Don Lemon to go into that church. I say a house of worship, don't go there. Don't go there. That would have been me. Get them when they're coming outside. Don't go into it. You know, it's private property. Who knows what they can charge you with, particularly with this administration. I didn't think it was the wisest thing for him to do, to go into that church, knowing how knowledgeable he is, knowing how smart he is, knowing how accomplished he has been as a journalist. I just felt like, hey, you know what? That wasn't the wisest thing to do. But he knew what he was doing, and it was clearly a risk that he was willing to take. How Trump and them have reacted to it all is the pathetic part of it. And then when you see people like Pam Bondi saying the kind of stuff that she says, it doesn't make it any better. It makes it worse. Play that for me, please.
Make no mistake, under President Trump's leadership and this administration, you have the right to worship freely and safely. And if I haven't been clear already, if you violate that sacred right, we are coming after you.
I can't tell whether that's her or Kristi Noem. If you didn't show me the video, I wouldn't have known it was her. Don't they sound exactly the same? See the commercial with Kristi Noem and you know, folks being deported or getting on a plane and they're flying off. And there's like, she's like, you know, if you're not here legally, this is what will happen to you. You know, with the cowgirl hat on and all of this other stuff, Pam Bondi saying what she says. Well, if you're so right and you're so righteous, why in the hell do you have to take 3 bites at the apple before you can get an arrest warrant? See, these are the kind of things that's happening because in the end, what it comes down to is this. It all equates to noise. Trump knows good and damn well this is going to be much ado about nothing. Don Lemon will be out of jail shortly if he's not already. And yes, he's going to have to spend money out of his pocket to defend himself in all likelihood. And that's probably the kind of inconvenience that Trump wants to cause to Letitia James, to Don Lemon, to John Bolton, to James Comey, to Jack Smith and others, because that's the kind of inconvenience they caused him. They hurt his wallets where he had to have all of these defense attorneys watching his back and representing him. And he wants to do the same thing to them, the same old pettiness or whatever. But this is how you make sure that you're cool and you're guarded, particularly if you're the Democrats right now, because we all know this is going to be politicized. Don Lemon is not going to jail. In the interest of full disclosure, I do have an obligation to point out, you know, what could potentially happen, because we can't ignore that, because we have to make sure that we highlight the charges here, okay? So if you're Don Lemon, you've got to deal with this stuff. If convicted of both charges, he could face more than a decade in prison, according to the Department of Justice sentencing guidelines. As for how likely the charges are to stick, let's call it what it is. At the very least, being diplomatic here, engaging in diplomacy, it's going to be an uphill climb, because he was there as a journalist, because that's what he's been doing his entire career. All he has to do is show similar footage to the kind of stuff that he's done throughout his career to show this is what comes along with journalism and where they're going to go then. Needless to say, the Democrats had to speak up, and I think it was apropos in this particular instance, especially for Senator Chuck Schumer, you know, minority leader in the Senate. And what does he say? Quote, once again, the administration is behaving no differently from the police states and authoritarian regimes across history. They've arrested a journalist for the crime of doing his job. The arrest is a dark message to journalists everywhere. If you dare criticize this administration, watch your back. This is not democracy. That is a police state, and that is pure authoritarian bile. Democracy will suffer if the government chokes our civil liberties. I think that's an excellent quote on the part of Senator Schumer. I think it's apropos for this particular case, no doubt. And most importantly than anything else, it's playing right into the Democrats' hands. It doesn't escape me that Don Lemon was arrested on the very night before 3 million pages of the Epstein files were being released. It doesn't escape me that it occurred the week that Trump was dipping in the polls. It doesn't escape me that he's being arrested at a time when there's a bevy of problems, whether it's Iran, whether it's the economy, whether it's ICE in the streets, seen with a 5-year-old 1 minute, seen shooting Alex Preddy another minute.
Shake, Senor.
Seen shooting Renee Good another minute just weeks earlier. It doesn't escape me that you still stick to this issue because it's the lone winning issue for you if you're Trump. But even in that category, it's dissipating. Because of how things look, because of what's been transpiring, because 2 Americans have been killed, because there's chaos in the streets of America. America has already shown you. If we did have a struggling economy, we'll deal with it. If we did have a border issue, we'll deal with it. Because anything is better than rampant chaos in the streets of America, particularly when pettiness, vindictiveness, and bullying, and dare we say authoritarian behavior is exhibited on the part of our government in the United States of America. When you do that, all bets are off. I told y'all.
All right, y'all. So that is our stopping point right there. It is a full video, so I don't want to play all of it, but I just wanted to play some of those talking points right there from Stephen A. I was going to go ahead and play some of it where he gets into the conversation with DL Hughley. I'm just kind of going over in time, y'all. I don't want to hold y'all up too much. I might just play a few little pieces of that conversation for y'all to hear. Just because we did mention it, you know, I did mention that I was going to do it. And so I did want to hear some of their talking points, but I was listening to Stephen A because, you know, the controversy when it comes to him. Sometimes he's on it, sometimes he's not. We can't be sure. But the talking points are pretty interesting. And I know a lot of people may feel the same exact way. They may feel and have the same talking points that he has, or they might feel in the opposite way. We can't be sure, right? Everybody feels and thinks the way they do. And there is difference of opinion, and that is always to be respected and accepted. Let's just play a little bit of their conversation real quick. We'll go to about the 2 hour and 35 minute mark, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this live up for y'all, okay? All right, here we go. Let's listen to some of their conversations together. I sped forward. Here we go.
I appreciate it. Now, listen, we all know what's going on here with regards to Don Lemon. You know, he was arrested late Thursday night in Beverly Hills while working at the Grammys or what have you. And obviously, everybody's looking at Attorney General Pam Bondi, how she announced via X that your former colleague, Don Lemon, was arrested by federal authorities on Thursday evening in connection with the anti-ICE demonstration at City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota on January 18th. First things first, have you spoken to him? First things first, have you spoken to him?
I have not, Stephen A., but I'm glad you mentioned that because I have to say, you know, before we get into this, I know Don personally. He was a colleague of mine here at CNN, and Don really was a guy who gave me a hand up. Don was, you know, by the time I arrived, he was fully established. He was anchoring our night show, and he was the first anchor to bring me onto a primetime show. So he reached out for me early, and we became close, and I did his show hundreds of numbers of times, and we've remained in touch. I've seen him around, but no, I have not talked to him since this happened.
Let me ask you this, and I appreciate your transparency on that. Thank you so much. What specifically are the charges against him? Tell our audience. I said it earlier, but I want you to reiterate it.
It's a good question. It's sort of obscure, unusual charges. So apparently there are 2 charges against Don here. They're basically the same conduct. One of them is criminal deprivation of civil rights. Now, it is a crime if you intentionally deprive someone of their civil rights. And the theory here, I guess, would be that he intentionally interfered with the right to free exercise of religion. There's also this statute, this federal law called the FACE Act, which was passed basically in the 1990s to preserve the ability of people to protest outside of abortion clinics. And what that law says is it makes it a crime, probably a misdemeanor, in this case, a first offense, for a person to intentionally obstruct or interfere with somebody's practice of their religion. So if you take it on its face, before we get to Don and the journalistic element, people may think it's a bad idea. People may think it's an ill-advised law. I will hear that argument, but it is a law. And so if you take it on its face, the protesters who went into that church and disrupted and derailed that church service technically violated that statute. And before today, we had seen 3 of those protesters charged with that crime. It is a misdemeanor, which means the max penalty is going to be 1 year. It's less serious than a felony, but we're still talking about federal criminal charges here. So it appears those are the charges against Don Lemon.
You brought up the vagueness of the charges, the ambiguity of it all. Do you believe that's intentional on the part of the DOJ and the Trump administration for it to be vague, because vagueness at times provides more maneuverability to, for those charges to be extended into other charges? I'm just asking.
I do think so. I mean, when you're a prosecutor, and I was in this chair for a long time, you have a lot of flexibility in the way you frame a charge. So if there's an indictment, it feels, by the way, surreal to say it, but United States versus Don Lemon, you can lay out your charges in detail. You can give a sense of what your evidence is, or if you so choose, you could basically just go to the statute book where it lists out the terms of the law and just fill in the blank and say on or about whatever it was, January such and such, 2026, in the District of Minnesota, the defendant Don Lemon did intentionally interfere with the person's exercise of their religious rights, and that's it. So they've kept it vague. The other thing that's really important here, Stephen A., to understand is there's a backstory into how they got this charge, because DOJ tried twice to charge Don before this.
That's where I was
and
going
were
next.
rejected. Yeah. So let me lay it out for you. When you're a prosecutor, there's 2 ways you can charge somebody. You can either go to a grand jury, meaning 23 civilians, and get a majority of them to vote for it, or you can do what's called write up a complaint, where you have to lay out your probable cause, bring it to a judge. The judge then has to review and sign. So DOJ first tried the complaint. They brought it to a judge, and a federal magistrate judge looked at this and said, no, I'm not signing this. And that judge did sign it as to the other 3, but not to Don and not as to other people. And I'm sure the reason for that is the First Amendment, that it's not a crime for a journalist to cover a crime. Failing that, DOJ then went to the appeals court and said, well, you have to force them to sign this complaint. And the appeals court said, absolutely not. And failing that, now try 3, they've gone to a grand jury, and they've gotten a grand jury to issue a complaint, an indictment against Don. Now, you may say, you will hear surely DOJ say things like, well, civilians and normal people looked at this evidence and concluded there was probable cause of a crime. But I'm here to tell you, you've heard the old thing about a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. It's largely true. Grand juries are spoon-fed whatever the prosecutor chooses to give them. There's no defendant in the room. There's no defense lawyer in the room. There's no cross-examination. There's no judge. And so it doesn't shock me. It surprises me, but it doesn't shock me that they were able to get, and you only need a majority in the grand jury, right? In a trial jury, you need unanimity. So here you need 12 out of 23. So they apparently have gotten this indictment. I don't think it's going to last. I think a judge is going to throw it out.
Well, I'm thinking about the fact that a federal magistrate judge had previously rejected the criminal complaint, like you pointed out. The appellate court said, we're not going for it. We're gonna stand by their decision as well. How the hell do you get a third bite at the apple? What is it that you did the third time around that wasn't good enough the second time around to get to get you to be able to arrest this man?
Don called it. There's an interview he did a week or so ago with Allison Camerata, another of our former colleagues here. And Allison asked him, do you think they're going to try again? And Don said, of course they will. That's what they do. And by the way, look, I am no apologist for Jim Comey or Letitia James. I've sharply criticized both of them. But I thought that the indictments of them were absolutely politically motivated, absolutely out of bounds, and absolutely would fail. And they have failed miserably so far. And I think those cases should be done by now. And I think we're seeing the same thing play out now with Don. I think they kept on trying every different outlet, even when a judge said no, when a court of appeal said no, they were like, we'll try a grand jury. They might have tried again if the grand jury said no. And I think they're going to lose. I think that much is clear. DOJ is going to lose. I don't know if they care, though. I really don't. I think they almost feel like getting off the charge, getting off the indictment, that's sort of the win. You know, the cheap shot, the sucker punch is the win, and we'll just worry about whatever happens later.
We're talking to Ellie Honig, CNN senior legal analyst right here with yours truly, Straight Shooter with yours truly. I got to ask you this, too, because the FACE Act has been brought up on numerous occasions. The federal government cited that act to justify the arrest of Don Lemon and the other protesters as well. Explain what the FACE Act is to our audience and how could it possibly apply here?
It is a law that was passed in the 1990s, and it basically says, in relevant part here, that it is a crime to intentionally interfere with somebody's exercise of their religious freedoms. It was passed during the time, you'll remember this, Stephen A., when there was a lot of controversy about where can people protest outside an abortion clinic, and you know, how far do they have to be, because there was religious protesters and that kind of thing. And so it was a law designed to protect religious expression, religious liberty. I think in this instance, it comes squarely up against another First Amendment, right? I mean, freedom of religion is First Amendment. So too is freedom of speech. So too is freedom of the press. And I think that's why Don's case is going to be different than the other protesters, because he's going to simply argue, I was covering this as a journalist. I mean, if you look at Don's videos, he is doing what journalists do. He doesn't have the typical big brand name. You know, it doesn't say CNN on his truck anymore. It doesn't say, you know, ESPN or whatever on his truck. But what Don is doing, I mean, he's got over 1 million subscribers and followers on YouTube. You're showing clips of it right now. He's interviewing protesters and parishioners alike. He's talking to the people in the church. He's doing what journalists do. And I think any federal judge, when this case lands on his or her desk, is going to say, this is protected First Amendment freedom of the press. And that's why I think the case is going to get thrown out.
You think the case is going to get thrown out? How soon do you think it'll get thrown out?
Just as soon as these issues can get briefed up. I mean, it may take a few weeks to brief them up. Don's lawyer, Abby Lowell, that name may seem familiar. I know Abby, he talked to me for my book. He has represented, almost everybody you can think of. He represents Lisa Cook, who's the Fed governor. He represented Hunter Biden. He actually represented Jared Kushner at one point, but primarily has been on Democratic sides. But Abby is a known First Amendment lawyer. I think the way this is going to play out is the judge, certainly Don's getting bail. They're not going to hold him. That would be insane. And then the judge is going to say, let's set motions. And Don's lawyer, Abby, is going to file a motion to dismiss that this violates the First Amendment, and the government, I'm interested to see their argument that it doesn't, actually. And I think then the case is going to be dismissed.
Folks on the right will try to make that level of vitriol both have shown for one another is an indication of activism as opposed to journalism, and that's why they could justify going after him. What kind of argument if they tried to make that argument, do you think it holds water?
No, this argument's going to go both ways. So if the administration says, look, Don Lemon hates Donald Trump, and Don Lemon is really more of an activist than a journalist, and he's fake news and all that, you're still protected. You don't have to be down the middle media to be protected by the First Amendment. You can be ragingly right or left. You can be Newsmax, or you can be Don. You are still protected by the First Amendment. But the other way is going to help Don if he needs to. If he doesn't somehow win on First Amendment, I promise you he will argue, and we know this because Jim Comey and Letitia James argued it, that this is what we call a vindictive prosecution, that the prosecution is political payback to punish him for his political views or based off some sort of vendetta held by somebody in power in the government. So
I think that's his best argument. I think it's his best argument. I mean, it's clear as day. That's what it is. But go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry.
If I was briefing this for Don, I would start with the First Amendment, argument 1 in my brief, motion to dismiss, and argument 2 would be vindictive prosecution. But I mean, what could be more clear than that Donald Trump hates Don and that Pam Bondi and others have targeted him because of that?
Last 2 questions. Don was seen on video with people in a car talking about going to the church. I saw folks on the right bring that up, saying that he went there with intent to join protesters. Therefore, he should be considered one of them just because you were asking questions of folks doesn't mean that you weren't a participant as a protester and an activist as opposed to a journalist. To that, you say what?
I've seen those videos, and I don't think they show what people are saying they show. Those videos clearly show that Don knew something was going to happen in a church. He knew that there was going to be a protest in a church. He did go in there, but that doesn't change the fact that he was covering it as a journalist. Look, if Don was in there yelling through a megaphone and waving signs up and down and not broadcasting it to his viewers, you could argue that he's a participant. But if you just look at what he did, yes, the video in the car shows that he knew that there was going to be a protest, that he knew it was going to be in a church. He had clearly been in some sort of communication or received some sort of tip. But journalists get tips all the time. This thing is about to go down. You may want to be at the corner of, X and Y street. Watch for a decision coming down from this court at 10 o'clock. That's not a crime to know that something is about to happen. And again, the key line is going to be, was he participant or was he journalist? And I'm telling you, the courts are going to, first of all, to me, the factual record shows he was on the journalist side, and the courts are going to err on the journalist side as well.
Federal agents also arrested independent journalist Georgia Fort. And activist Traherne Jean Cruz and Jamal Lydell Lundy. What do we know about their arrest right now?
So I think the other journalist, Ms. Fort, is going to have the same exact arguments as Don. And I think the question will be the same question, which is, did she cross that line? Was she a participant or was she covering it as a journalist? The evidence I've seen, I haven't looked at it as carefully as Don's case, but it looks to me like she was safely on the journalistic side of that. The other people, look, there are now, I think, 5 people who were charged with going into that church and violating the FACE Act. And to that question, let's put aside the journalism piece of this. My read on this as someone who was a longtime prosecutor is, did they violate the FACE Act on its face? Yes, because they did intentionally disrupt the practice of religion. On the other hand, you have to ask the discretionary questions if you're a prosecutor. Was this an ongoing disruption? Were they protesting for days on end? Were they stopping people? No, they disrupted one service. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but you have to consider the scope of it. There was no violence, there was no physical force, and they weren't targeting this church because they wanted to dissuade people from exercising Christianity or Catholicism. It's not like they said, we don't like that religion. They wanted to protest ICE. So I get it. I think the charges against the people who actually went into that church are on their face valid. I'm not sure it's a good exercise of discretion and judiciousness by DOJ. And by the way, remember, ultimately, they're going to have to get these cases, they're going to have to bring these cases to conviction either in front of a judge or a jury. And if you end up in front of a jury, because it's a misdemeanor, it may not have to go to a jury. But man, do you see 12 Minnesotans unanimously finding these folks guilty? I'm not sure how likely that is.
Right. Before I let you go, Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, it's been said that they violated an inordinate amount of court orders. One minute I see the numbers at 96, another minute I see it over 100. Do you have any idea how many court orders they have violated along the way?
It is at least 100, and I know that because an opinion came out just the other day from a conservative George W. Bush appointed judge who just unleashed on ICE and DHS. Basically, and it's not even the cases you and I have been hearing about, Stephen A. It's not the Minnesota case. It's not the 5-year-old. It's not Kilmar. I mean, they did defy some orders with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, but it's these unknown cases where this case in particular, a judge said this detainee is to be given a hearing by, I think it was January 21st. And the person was not given the hearing. And the judge issues this scalding ruling basically saying, I've never seen this. Again, this is a conservative Bush-appointed judge saying, I've never seen this level of outright defiance of court appearances. And the judge said, I order the head of ICE's operations into this courtroom by Friday, what's today, unless this person is given their hearing. And sure enough, because of that, the person was not only given the hearing, but released. So this is not to be taken lightly. I mean, it was, listen, I was at DOJ, I was a state prosecutor, 14 years total. It was not seen as remotely optional. Oh, a judge issued an order. Do we want to comply? It's not like a high school English class. We're like, I'll hand it in when I get to it, or maybe I'll take a 0. That's not an option when you're a prosecutor. And so it's good that judges, regardless of political persuasion, are aggressively calling this out.
we pick out last question. We pick out an abundance of things where when you see something politicized, we take a side and we ultimately say this is going to hurt this side. This may help the side. That's from a political perspective. From a legal perspective, courts have feelings. You've seen the judge. You talked about the judge appointed by Bush and how he excoriated and railed against the Trump administration, the DOJ and the DHS because of, violating court orders and what have you. From a legal perspective, how much is tolerated when you ignore an abundance of court orders and you're clearly not following protocol and you're not following laws? How much of that is tolerated before you, even as a White House administration or the legal arm of the law that it has available to itself, gets checked? And I'm talking about permanently, because you're just not, when I'm talking about you're just not following the law. When do they get checked from the legal community in terms of the court saying, we don't even want to hear from y'all anymore because y'all ain't doing things the right way?
One thing I think we've learned during this first year of Trump's second term is you can get away with a hell of a lot if you're willing to push boundaries. And the consequences are pretty minimal. I mean, think back to the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. This is the guy who was wrongly deported to Honduras and then brought back, and now he's being prosecuted. I mean, DOJ defied orders and played word games with courts up to the Supreme Court, and various courts issued these scalding rulings and saying, I've never seen anything like this. It's an outrage. But ultimately, it did not get to a point where people were held in contempt. They were threatened with contempt. And contempt, I mean, as a practical matter, you're not looking probably at imprisonment. And the point to your question, Stephen A., is we put a lot of faith in the good faith of our Justice Department to play fair, to at least abide by rulings, whether they like them or not. And we're seeing that if people choose to just disregard that, there's not a heck of a lot that happens to them. Now, there may be professional consequences. There will be reputational consequences. Some people have lost their licenses. I mean, Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, separate contexts, but they all lost their bar licenses. But I think one of the lessons is our laws are important, our rules are important, our regs are important, but ultimately we depend on the good faith of the people who hold these jobs. And if you have people who hold these jobs who don't give a crap and are going to do what they're going to do, there's not a heck of a lot you can do to stop.
All right, y'all. So we are going to go ahead and end it there. We didn't have actually very much left of that live to play. Like at the end, I did skip over because I wanted to hear the conversation that they were having with some excellent information that gave us, I think a lot of more insight into what exactly could possibly play out with these cases and how the DOJ is moving and operating, trying to, to me, it seems like manipulate the law in basically instances of desperation. And as we heard him say, that was the third attempt, to really go after Don and these reporters and get them hemmed up. And we have, they have judges, they have magistrates, and they have the appellate court that was like, no, absolutely not. We're not doing that. Because they can see from a mile away, there was nothing that was done that was a crime, nothing that would justify the arrest. But as they said, when they do this independent grand jury where there is no judge, there are no lawyers or magistrates or anything like that, it's just individuals that they somehow, I guess, come across, that they sit down to become this grand jury, and they feed them this information. They could be purchased, they could be bought. We know that happens. They could be friends, they could be family. We can't be sure, but we know slimy things happen when it comes to the legal system, right? And to get what they want, they find a way. They jump through hoops. They find things that they can do to put things in place. But what matters is that justice is being served. I believe that God is righting wrongs. Don and the rest of these journalists are free. We are praying that a lot of these innocent citizens are freed as well, because we have little children and babies and parents and just individuals, period, that have been hemmed up and are locked inside of these detention centers under terrible circumstances. to where, you know, they're struggling and fighting for their rights, but also their lives, okay, because they're not living in great conditions. And this whole system, this organization that they have put into place, these mercenaries, if you ask me, in my personal opinion, is what I think these people are in this organization is. It has to be dismantled and it has to go, because this is ridiculousness. And we're watching it play out almost every single day. There is a report, there is a story, there is someone at the hands of these individuals that is struggling and being unjustly abused, detained, and maybe even unalived at the worst of it all. And so, y'all, that is all I got for this live. I just wanted to come on and talk about those few topics. Of course, you know, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll be talking about more things, because there's always something to talk about. But we add a little comedy, we add a little history, we add some civics and some facts and some truth, and we're keeping up and staying up on what is going on, not just in this country, but worldwide. We're fighting and we're speaking up for what is right for the human race, for us as a people, no matter what we look like, where we're from, any of our differences. We are human beings first, and we're fighting for our rights, and we won't let them take them away from us. So in any way we can put in a good fight, whatever effort that we can put in, let's do it, y'all. However you can step to the bat, let's step to the bat. I'm willing to do so. It's not much I can do, but I'm willing to come forth at least and talk about these things, have these open conversations, bring this information to the forefront, and keep it alive. Tomorrow, I know for sure on my live, we will be talking a little bit more about Megyn Kelly, and we also are going to be doing a deep dive into and giving the updates around the Epstein files, which is something that we need to stay on top of, y'all, because it's very serious. And the survivors, the victims of the Epstein Island, the Epstein man, they deserve proper justice, okay? And so we're not going to just allow that stuff to be swept under the rug or allow ourselves to be distracted away from it because of, you know, this type of magician type energy that this administration seems to want to work and operate with. Hey, look left so you don't see what's happening on the right. We're looking in all directions, and we're keeping our heads on swivel when it comes to all of this, because there's so much going on, and we will stay on top of it and not just try to bring little bits and pieces of all of it to y'all, because I want us to be able to keep up on it. So I hope y'all enjoyed the live. I thank you so much for rocking with me and listening to my live, whether you was listening in the bush, whether you was in the chat. It's okay. Any type of support and participation is appreciated. But y'all, we're going to end with a bop per usual. And I will see y'all and talk to y'all tomorrow on the next live, where we have a few more topics and updates about what's going on out here in this big, beautiful world. Let's remember, y'all, to keep our heads held high, keep our prayer hands in place, if that respectfully is what you do, and keep our hope at the highest extremity that we can, because it's going to be okay. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like it, and it seems crazy and overwhelming, but we fight through it one day at a time, one moment at a time, and one, you know, story at a time. But anyway, y'all, that's all I got for tonight. I'm out. I will talk to y'all on the next one. Bye.
It's enough. Check the pulse of the nation, feel a tremor in the ground. Another hollow promise, another hateful sound. The burner phones are buzzing, the leak, DMs exposed. The country club whispers about the people in their robes. They smiling for the cameras, preaching unity and grace. We're drafting legislation to keep you in your place. The dog whistles, the sirens, now the hoods are in the open. Igniting tiki torch shadows, leaving spirits broken. They want to turn the clock back to a time of guilt and pain, where progress is a dirty word and fear is how they reign. But every soul they try to crush just learn to stand up straighter. This ain't a game of politics, this is gladiator. Enough is enough. The whispers turn into the heat. I feel so picture. Enough is enough. Where the people at the table filling up our cup. This ain't about a party. The lines are clearly drawn. It's the light against the darkness that's coming for the dawn. Holy versus evil is the truth against the lie. We ain't backing down with a fire in the sky. They coming for the libraries, wanna burn away the facts. Erase the bloody chapter so you can't see the tracks. They gerrymandering the district, drawing every map. Your vote is just an echo caught inside the power trap. They purging names from voter rolls and calling it secure, while scream about election fraud to keep their motives pure. They wanna legislate the scars upon a woman's soul, and own the very choices that were never theirs. Control from the classroom to the courthouse, a calculated scheme to suffocate the promise of the American dream. But they forgot the dream was dreamed by rebels and by slaves, and their spirit is the very ground that trembles in their graves. Enough is enough. Call it policy, they call it survival, we call it tyranny. They stand on podiums with a Bible in their hand, but don't know the first thing about the soul of this land. This is for the teacher hiding books up on the shelf, for the doctor taking notes to more than just himself. This is for the dreamer facing down an ice patrol, for every ancestor's prayer that paid the spirit's toll. Their power is an illusion, a fortress made of glass. Our strength is in the future, they are terrified to let pass this hurricane of justice, an earthquake of the soul. It's a holy fire raging, and it's out of their control. Enough is enough. No more. Standing too long now that you can't stand. Enough is enough. See the people at the table filling up our cup. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Welcome to the rain. Golden Queen. H2.0. Let's get it. You're looking for a diamond, found a treasure in the rough. Tired of all the noise, cause you finally had enough. I'm here to build a movement on a mission for the nation. Dropping gems of knowledge, killing all the hesitation. We fighting for the truth, yeah, we fighting for what's right. Building unity and shining up a brand new light. It's a variety channel, but the vision's crystal clear. Pushing us all forward, conquering the doubt and fear. Yo, welcome to the Queendom. H2.0 on your screen, with the content's real and smart and funny in between. This is more than just a stream, it's a platform for the change. Time to elevate the game and rearrange. So if you're ready for a vibe that you can feel and trust, joining in the movement is a definite must. This ain't just another channel talking smack behind the screen. It's a spotlight for the creators, building up of the scene, spreading radical love, that's the message in the code. Helping everybody carry up a heavy load, from social justice issues to the laughter that we need. Planting seeds of progress, watch them grow from just a seed. This is authentic, this is raw, this is everything you saw. Welcome to the battle that is truly being fought. Oh, so come with your respect and see the real effect, cause I protect my own right here on the throne. Don't make me unleash the dragon. You've been warned. make me unleash the dragon. You've been warned. Yeah. Golden Queen Age 2.0. The movement starts now. Go ahead. Hit subscribe, ring that notification bell. You don't want to miss a thing. Welcome to the family.